The story begins with our heroine reflecting on how she had only one desire: to be treated like other people. The young man standing right in front of her asked if she knew things would turn out this way. There was a chance to avoid all this, because she understood from the very beginning that she would die here. But she decided to try to stand up for herself. Her actions were unsuccessful, so death, in the form of a young man with a sword in his hands, was approaching her straight away. The girl knew it was inevitable, but she didn't want to admit that the last 25 years had been wasted. Why did he do this to her? If she had been given another chance, everything would have been different. I would have really wanted to start all over again. When the girl came to, she could not understand where she was and what was happening. Suddenly, a maid took her arm and asked if everything was okay with her. Our heroine did not understand how this was possible, because she was sure that Elda had died. Adeline's existence became known at a banquet of nobles, but they were unwelcome guests there. An unwanted child of low birth, an illegitimate daughter of the House of Lawton. The only person who stood by her side in this semblance of hell was Elda. And she is alive. This is not a hallucination. The woman asked worriedly what was going on with her. Maybe she really didn't want to marry that duke. But the girl replied that there was no need to worry. She was really fine. Today was her wedding day, a marriage ceremony without a hint of love, a marriage that existed only on paper. Adeline thought she would do anything to leave Lawton's house, but even there she was treated like a useless child. It is unknown how it happened, but she returned to the times when there was still Adeline Lawton. This is her second chance, so she will live everything differently this time. Lawton family, Bianca, appeared and said that clothes make a person, so she looks good. The girl is lucky because she thought that she would live alone her whole life. Whoever wanted to marry her at all? That duke has very strange taste. Last time, our heroine answered her that she was right, because Bianca is the pearl of this house. So how could he choose her, an illegitimate child? But now she replied that she was right, and for that she should be very grateful. The maid was slightly frightened that they were using a disrespectful form of communication. Adeline thought to herself that, unlike her previous life, this time Elda would not cry, which meant she would have enough strength to change the future. The so-called sister immediately got angry that she was marrying a simple minor duke. Does she really think that she will be jealous? Our heroine asked for forgiveness and replied that they were in different positions because no one would even choose her. Bianca screamed, "How dare she talk to her like that? Let her show gratitude immediately." Suddenly, a butler appeared in the room and announced that Duke Benzark was waiting for Adeline in the drawing room. The girl walked past her sister, her head held high, and said that she was welcome to stay. She will never know if this opportunity came for good, or if some unknown force must have been the reason why she returned on her wedding day. A place from which no one can leave alive is the Land of Darkness, and this territory is ruled by a cruel duke, a man with such colossal power that even the emperor does not dare to disturb him, Horus Benzark. Now there will be a reunion with her unworthy husband, whom she loved too much, and died by his sword. Upon seeing the young man, our heroine introduced herself and said that she couldn't even believe that they had finally met. She was very pleased to see him, after which she extended her hand to him and asked if he would be so kind as to accompany her. The young man thought to himself that not long ago he had a dream about a prophecy. A voice told him to find Adeline Lawton, and together with her made sure that the world belonged only to them. A few days ago, in the living room of Horus, Aster Lefa reasoned about the prophetic dream that the captain had, the one who sees the truth. It was very similar to the prediction they were looking for. Apparently, it has something to do with the respected daughter of the Count's house. It is necessary to wait and then find out if he is prophetic, but she must be brought before they notice. The girl was a little scared when she heard his name, but the marriage was approved so quickly that he was scared, wondering if this was normal. Of course, there won't be a wedding ceremony, but at least you should pick up the bride in person. The guy asked if there was any point in that. The friend replied that he needed to show her at least a little sincerity. She was in a deplorable state. She was a submissive and modest girl. There was nothing complicated about it. The Duke clearly remembered these words of his friend, but the girl standing in front of him did not look modest and sad at all. In fact, not every person could look him in the eyes with such confidence as she did. Then he ignored her request for an escort and simply said, "Let's go." Adeline thought to herself that he was a bad man. refused to officiate the wedding, refused to ask for her hand, and said only 2 words. The girl loved him for 25 years. But their first and last meetings were equally cold, after which she turned towards him and asked again if he would accompany her. After some time, Benzark asked where he saw a modest and submissive lady here. The young man laughed and replied that it was somehow strange, because when he arrived, she really behaved modestly, did not even raise her head, and was quite excited. Then he noticed that the Duchess's carriage had arrived and said that it was time to return to the mansion. When she went outside, she noted that there was nothing around, but the guy said that she would go a different way, after which he asked if the girl had heard of magic. Our heroine replied that of course. She thought to herself that he had told her about her in a past life. When Adeline asked him about something he didn't know, the guy answered as sincerely as possible. It was he who taught her how to use magic, and she succeeded, but not always confidently. Horace asked what kind of magic she could use. The girl asked if she really needed to show it right now, since she was tired. The Duke said he had been told that Lawton's youngest daughter was rather shy, but that was far from the truth. Our heroine retorted that if that was to his taste, then he should just find someone who would behave that way. The young man then asked if she had used teleportation before, but Adeline replied that she had not. Benzark began to activate the spell and warned that people often fainted the first time, so be careful. The girl replied that although it would be difficult to endure, she would try very hard. After some time, the young man wandered around and looked for Adeline, who should have already passed. Suddenly, a girl's voice came from behind the tree, asking if this was the duchy. What lovely trees there were around. This was simply a wonderful place. The young man was surprised by such an assessment, because usually this territory is not reacted to in this way. Our heroine stated that she would now like to make several proposals. The Duke angrily asked why she even thought she had the right to do that. Lawton replied that of course there was. He needed something from her. He couldn't expect to get it just like that. The young man immediately asked if she was really a seer. The girl noted to herself that, as expected, they considered her a seer. Then she would live like this, because there was no reason to correct this misunderstandings. After which she stated that she wanted to receive proper treatment in accordance with her abilities. She would not change her last name and would continue to live as Adeline Lawton. Astor decided to intervene in the conversation Lefay, who asked if she was aware that she was, in fact, married to a duke. If she continues to use her maiden name, people will continue to ask for her hand in marriage, and it will look bad from the outside. The girl laughed and replied that it was very sweet that he was worried about her. It would be great if they started doing this earlier. At the moment of discussing marriage, she would not pay the slightest attention to what others thought. The young man replied that he didn't really care, so let him do as he wanted. He thought to himself that this offer was not bad, but why did it bother him so much? But it was even quite profitable, since it relieved him of extra work. But for some reason, he did not want to allow her to do this. It's as if she's trying to minimize all associations with him. But why? Our heroine said that in public, she would behave like the Duchess of Benzark, but alone with herself and her people, she is Adeline Lawton, and also has a weakness for wedding ceremonies. When the girl wants, let him allow her to have an extremely spectacular ceremony. Until then, they will think that they are allies and will simply pretend to be married. The Duke replied that he agreed, and thought to himself that this was an excellent proposal. But why did it not satisfy him? Suddenly, the butler of the Benzark house, whose name is Maven, appeared and exclaimed that it was a great honor for him to meet the Duchess. Our heroine noted to herself that he was the only one who cared for her in the duchy. Suddenly, a picture appeared before her eyes of some creature dragging away a young man. She could not understand what it was. Was it really a forgotten memory? The young man immediately asked if everything was okay with her, because she had suddenly turned pale. Adeline replied that she was fine. She just felt dizzy for some reason, and she noted to herself that this guy would die. But why did the memories appear so suddenly? Weren't they all still intact in her memory? The butler understood that something was wrong with her and said that the Duchess frightened him. The girl thanked him for his concern and asked him to call her by her first name. Maven exclaimed, "How dare he call Duchess Benzark simply by her precious name?" Our heroine replied that it wasn't so precious that he couldn't pronounce it, so he could boldly call her Adeline. The Duke got tired of listening to this conversation, so he told him to just do as she wanted. The butler eventually agreed with all this, and asked her if she would like to go in the carriage now. The girl immediately turned to Horace and asked where he was going, since he was supposed to accompany her. The young man sighed heavily, walked up to her and said, "Let's go." Maven noted that it seemed that their duchess was quite an unusual lady. Astor replied that yes, she was a tough nut to crack, as it was the first time he had seen their lord sigh like that. The owner even seemed somewhat confused to him. The butler was extremely surprised by this, and he muttered that a lot can happen in life. I noted to myself that I had never seen his face express emotion since I came to him. It seemed that something interesting was brewing. Meanwhile, in the carriage, our heroine sat with an imperturbable expression on her face, although in fact she was very comfortable. Maybe she should have asked to sit next to Maven. Why was he staring at her like that? What a stupid man. It's as if he's trying to understand from her eyes what she's thinking. A little deeper, in the forest of darkness, are the walls of the palace. Once you get inside, the main residence and the Black Tower will appear. There are the servants' quarters and stables. The people of this duchy have no interest at all in farming the land. The girl noted that it seemed like he had completely abandoned this territory. It felt like all this spacious land was going to waste. They are used only as a road for passing carriages. She is thinking about placing a lush garden there. What does he think about this? The young man replied indifferently that she could do whatever she wanted. Adeline clarified that it is really even possible to create a garden that will outshine the imperial one in its beauty. The guy asked if she wasn't going to do things her way anyway, so why was she asking his opinion then? Our heroine noted to herself that a conversation is simple. Why did she suppress herself so much in her past life? That's why people say that the most important thing is to get along, and now she is allowed to do whatever she wants. This is exactly what she deserves. If so, she will do everything she dreamed of in her past life. She is already looking forward to the next day, deciding what tree to plant in the garden, what flowers to grow in the flower beds. When they got inside, the servants asked if they should start making preparations so that she could rest. Our heroine replied that it would be nice, since she was tired from the journey. The man then immediately told her to follow him, because there were suitable chambers for her. Maven explained that the room on the third floor is large. The sun illuminates it well, and it is located next to the master's bedroom, so she will feel safe. Our heroine noted to herself that she was very glad that he was alive, because the fact that there was someone in the mansion who was ready to support her was a great relief. When Adeline entered the room where she would live, she thought to herself that she was finally here. In her past life, this bedroom did not belong to her. It belonged to the woman who became the mistress of the house in her place. One day, when the Duke returned after a long absence, she was with him. Beautiful girl with scarlet hair and a bold look. Hella Alton. She took her rights for granted. But our heroine swore to herself that this time she would never lose them. Suddenly, the guy asked her if she liked the room. The guys in the background were completely taken aback by this. When the girl replied that she liked it quite well, the Duke said that that was great. Let her rest. After he left, Maven said that he was surprised because their master was not the type of person to pay attention to others' feelings. But this does not mean that he is a bad person. He just has a slightly rude character. Adeline replied that she would take his word for it, but she thought to herself that he was not really bad, but cold and calculating. Usually such people are considered terrible, but the young man said that if she wanted anything, she should ring the bell and the maid would come, after which he asked if she wanted to have lunch. The girl was surprised that it was really time already, but then she replied that she would refrain, and that there was already a lot to prepare while she was resting. When the young man asked if she would join the dinner, the girl replied that, of course, she should do her work and not worry about her. Catherine came to our heroine, who from that day on would be her personal servant. In her past life, when she first met her, the maid showed respect, but soon began to despise her. Why do people start to neglect her when she treats them well? Then Adeline sighed heavily and asked how old she was. The maid replied in confusion that it was 22. Lauder waved her hand at her and said that she would call if she needed anything, but for now she could be free. Catherine replied that, okay. She thought to herself what to do. Her reaction was alarming. Could it be that she made a mistake? The girl was so excited that she was completely immersed in her thoughts and did not notice the flower pot that she accidentally touched. Our heroine exclaimed that it was dangerous, so she immediately grabbed the maid and led her a little to the side. Catherine was shocked. What should she do now? Because this pot costs as much as her salary for 10 months. She was already shaking all over, started asking for forgiveness, and saying that it was all because of her clumsiness. Adeline said that she doesn't care about the potty at all, how she feels, whether she got hurt. The maid once again asked for forgiveness and said that she had been too hasty. The girl replied that everyone makes mistakes. There was no need to worry since she was not hurt. Then everything was fine, and she shouldn't worry about this flower pot. The Duchess will invite her to her place in the evening. Behind the door, the maid thought that her ladyship was simply a wonderful girl. She didn't expect that she was like that. It was stupid to be jealous, having heard about her marriage with the master. The Duchess, like a doll, simply cannot believe that she is now the personal servant of someone like her. It is necessary to immediately tell everyone what a beautiful and amazing wife their master has. It will make her the most respected person in the mansion. Meanwhile, our heroine did not understand why her ears suddenly started to burn. After some time, the Duke caught himself thinking that he couldn't get Adeline out of his head. He has no desire to worry about such a girl at all, so why does it bother him anyway? Astor entered the office and said that he would like to talk about plans for the future, but he was also interested in what the Duke was thinking. Benzark replied that if he intended to say something stupid, then he should just leave. But if it was about the prophecy, then it was a completely different matter. The woman said that she would open his eyes. Perhaps this meant that he would be able to distinguish between Dev and Akur. Leffa objected that his question was not about that, but just don't tell him that he was going to continue calling Adeline. This woman. Now she is a duchess. If she continues to be treated like that, the servants will despise her. Horace was indignant. Did her title even matter now? They had a lot of things to discuss. But the friend again objected that he believed this was the most important issue that needed to be discussed at the moment. Now this girl is his family, maybe he forgot. But usually people live and build relationships. They get engaged and married, have children and a family. The young man replied that he knew perfectly well that he had no desire to play family. Now it is the year 512. After the heavenly war against the demons ended with the defeat of Dev, they lived only for the sake of the revival of the heavenly kingdom. It's been 60 years since he barely managed to awaken Astor and Vaken, but they couldn't even track down the other devs. And there was even less information about the Demon King and the entrance to the demon realm. Was there any news from Vaken? The young man replied that he had contacted him, but had not given him any useful information. Or rather, that he had found some traces, but could not stay there for long because of the severe cold. The guy had warned him that it was better to trust him with such things. But in any case, since they had returned, they should go to the lands of ice, and for him, the best option would be to unite. The Duke replied that he had no other choice, as he had little divine power left. Then, he suddenly remembered the woman's words about her being able to use magic. Was it possible to be a prophet and use magic at the same time? The Tree of Life. Dev is dead. The Tree of Akur must also weaken while the leader is in hiding. That is why the divine and demonic beings who could use magic have disappeared from this world. The tree is the source of divine and demonic power. When it withers, the power naturally disappears. And because they have the same roots, Akur and Dev cannot tell whether divine or demonic power is being used. Adeline Lawton is the one who sees the truth and will be able to open his eyes. I wonder what this prophecy even means. Maybe her ability to do magic has something to do with it, meaning she can see the truth, divine or demonic power, or something. But why does the Duke feel uncomfortable and strange when he looks into her eyes? For what reason? Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking that, if you think about it, it's even funny she died, but came back to life, returning in time. Suddenly, a maid came to her and said that she had come to ask if she should cook something to eat. Adeline stated that she had come just in time, because she had just been about to call her. The maid asked whether she should take her to the dining room or bring the food here. Our heroine replied that she would eat in the hall, but she could not leave the room like that, so could she help her? After which she added that she should raise her head. She didn't like talking to a person while looking at the top of his head. She couldn't let her lovely face go to waste. Let Catherine follow her, help her get dressed, and perhaps fix her hair. The dress was wrinkled, so I needed to change before walking around the mansion. But when I opened the closet door, I saw that there was nothing there. The maid immediately began to apologize that they did not have time to prepare outfits for her. She would go right now and buy something. Lauder said that it was too late. How could it possibly get into a capital clothing store? But it's okay, it's not her fault. The Duke runs the estate, so it's his fault for not having prepared everything necessary for his bride. Let him call a butler to hers. As the maid ran away, our heroine thought to herself that it looked like she would have to teach Horace how to properly treat the mistress of the house. Almost immediately, the butler arrived and said that he had been informed that she had called him regarding the question of her dress. The girl replied that, indeed, she had one request. Could he bring her his Grace's clothes? She needed to change now, but, as he could see, the dress was not prepared. The Duke didn't take care of her at all, but that doesn't mean she should wear anything, so he should be punished too. So let him bring her his best clothes. The boys were very surprised and thought to themselves that it seemed she was trying to turn their master into a normal person. Therefore, they exclaimed that they understood her perfectly. And now they would prepare everything, and the maid would bring someone who knew how to sew. Adeline noted that they were more carried away than she was. This life is full of events that she could not have imagined before. Then the dressing room was empty, and she had to go down to the dining room time after time in wrinkled dresses. She had never even thought about approaching the butler, and the maid had never looked at her so friendly. The young man stated that this meant that this woman needed his clothes. Maven replied that, yes, if it were still light, he would go buy a dress. But now she had nothing to wear. The Duke asked why she needed his clothes. Why not find a maid of similar build and wear her dress? The young man exclaimed that this was unacceptable, that such a thing could not be said even as a joke, that it would be extremely insulting to force their mistress to put on a servant's dress. Horace could not understand why he could not wear the servant's dress, but could wear his clothes, since they were men's clothes. The butler said that, as they say, a married couple is one in soul and body. Benzark thought to himself, why did he suddenly become so impudent? Because yesterday he couldn't even raise his eyes to him, and today he not only argues, but also tries to lecture. But still, his clothes should look good on our heroine. After some time, Catherine exclaimed that it suited her. She looked like a young nobleman. Adeline thanked her and said that they needed to hurry to the dining room, since they were already very late. On the way, the girl thought that, although she did not sew the clothes herself, there was someone who adjusted them to the right size. Now she can delegate to others the tasks that she previously had to do herself. It feels strange, but at the same time new. A relief like taking off a stifling corset. She liked these clothes more than she expected. She needs to dress like this more often. Seeing them, the butler smiled and said that they had just finished their preparations. Then he looked at our heroine and added that she looked much more attractive than he thought, even more so than Astor. Lauder asked if, when it came to attractiveness, he first imagined Leffa and not the Duke. The guy said that there was no need to say anything about his grace. He was attractive, but his speech left much to be desired. About a stare. Like a prince, he can be called a representative of the stereotype of male attractiveness. He is a little different from his grace. The girl was surprised that he perceived him this way, because she never considered this guy attractive. Maven suddenly asked if she thought the Duke was the most handsome. Our heroine asked if he was joking with her for an hour. It doesn't matter who cares about their beauty. The most important thing for her is wealth. It's best to be rich. It's important for her to be able to enjoy many things. The young man said that then his lordship would appear to her in an even better light. He would reproach him more often, so that she could enjoy her wealth as she pleased. Lauder thought that, to be honest, there had been a time when she had looked upon Horace with unconditional favor, and she would have liked to tell the truth to the butler. But her husband had ended up killing her, and here she sat again, alone once again. Meanwhile, Maven did not understand what had happened to her, why she had stopped eating. Perhaps she could not tolerate some food, so he carefully asked if she didn't like something, and if so, he would ask the chef to send the next dish. The girl replied that there was no need to worry, everything was fine. She was just thinking a little. She wanted to ask whether his grace should join the meal or not. The guy replied that no, he usually preferred to eat separately, in his own quarters. Our heroine noted that for her, it sounded like, this is the kind of person he is, so please let him understand and not take it to heart. The young man immediately noted that he had expressed himself incorrectly, and therefore corrected himself. But Adeline said that he had done nothing wrong. Let her please convey to the Duke that in this estate, No matter what he is usually accustomed to do, she has no reason to understand or not take his actions to heart. Since Horas had already tied himself to her, she would like him to come down immediately to eat with her and talk, but if he prefers to stay at home, then let him tell her that she will then starve herself to death. When the butler reported this phrase to him, the Duke noted that what a problematic woman she was. The guy added that at this rate, rumors would soon spread that Benzark was starving his new wife, and that his refusal to feed her would bring shame on the house. Horace asked to stop lecturing him, after which the young man rose and told him to set the table downstairs. The butler exclaimed that this was an excellent solution. The Duke made a mental note to find out how much she knew about them. It would be a great chance. Plus, he didn't really dislike it. When the young man came down to her, the girl thanked him for the clothes and said that she would try not to ruin them. The young man said that despite the fact that it was a man's dress, it fit her well. Adeline asked if that was all he could say. After all, Horace was her husband. Shouldn't he have said that it suited her, or that she looked beautiful? Benzark objected that she was demanding too much from him. The girl replied that in that case, if he didn't like it, then she could go home. What would she do then, after all? It was he who asked her to marry him. Had he really forgotten? The guy noted to himself that she clearly wasn't going to slow down, after which he said that the girl continued to behave like his wife, although she hadn't taken his last name. But the suit really suited her. Our heroine thanked him for the compliment and asked if he still remembered that she refused to take his last name. But the young man thought to himself that he wanted to file for divorce. But then the girl smiled and said that she was just joking, that she needed to start eating, otherwise everything would get cold. She thought to herself that he had never listened to her the way he did now, and it wouldn't be a big deal if he was a little more persistent. So she said that she would call him Horace. When the young man replied that she could do as she wished, our heroine realized that perhaps this life would be a little different. Then she added that he should try calling her Adele. She was sure that he didn't plan to continue calling her that woman, did he? When the Duke carefully called her that, an image from the past immediately popped into her mind. The young man immediately asked if everything was okay with her. The girl replied that it was nothing. The salad just turned out to be so tasty. But the Duke objected that she had not even touched the food. She thought to herself whose voice it was just now. She would never have forgotten if Horace had called her name then. She was sure that in 25 years this had never happened. She is absolutely sure of this, even if only fragments of her memories remain. She does not remember this face, but why there was despair in his voice. Sometime later, when our heroine was drinking tea, the Duke approached her and said that he wanted to ask her something, how much she knew about them. The girl replied that she knew that he was Dev, and that she also knew about the war between the heavenly and demonic kingdoms, and that the heavenly had lost. The heavenly war against the demons took place 512 years ago on this earth, in the Middle Kingdom that humans call home. It is a neutral zone located between the heavenly and demonic realms. The heavenly Dev and demonic Akur often visited here for fun, but the promise not to seize the Middle Kingdom was broken, and the Devs were defeated in a long war. Horus was the last leader of Dev. She heard this story from him in a past life, but there was nothing else said about him, so she would like to hear it from him. After which she said that she had many dreams, some of which she remembered in detail, some vaguely. So she would like to hear his story, how he was born, lived, and what he plans to do. The guy was surprised by this question, because it seemed like he had never really thought about himself. All his thoughts were only about how to avoid Akur's gaze and survive, how to take revenge, and how to fulfill his desire to steal the Tree of Life. In principle, there is nothing special to discuss. The young man simply survived, and that's it. The boy was born from the Tree of Life, a few months before the start of the war. Did she know that Dev and Akur mature faster than humans? It only takes 3 to 4 months to become like a 6-year-old human child. It was then that the agreement between them was broken. Both sides tried to make the Middle Kingdom their own, ignoring the rules of the gods. Initially, the relationship was not so bad. Because people worshipped them, they classified the white Devs as good and the black Akurs as evil. However, by their nature, they were not far removed from people, and everyone could be both good and evil, like them, which is why sometimes they helped them, and sometimes oppressed them, and even condescended to reincarnate and live with them. Perhaps that is why they all wanted to take over the Middle Kingdom even more. The skirmishes were quite frequent, so no one thought that they would last long. But soon the war spread throughout the Middle Kingdom, and the devs began to lose. This happened because the demon queen, Camilla, had been preparing for war for a long time, and they eventually reached the heavenly kingdom and burned the Tree of Life, their cradle. The divine power emanating from the tree was completely destroyed, and without the power, the devs quickly lost. In the middle of the war, he was appointed successor to Derlot, but before he could receive instructions, Fabienne, who was in command at the time, died. Therefore, the position of head of the heavenly kingdom suddenly fell to him. The Akur kept coming to exterminate all of Dev. His comrades and family simply died helplessly. The devs who managed to survive went into a deep sleep called dormancy to heal their wounds, and as the only survivor, he must find them. In a series of failures, a reason for joy finally appeared. The demon queen also fell into peace, but for what reason he doesn't understand, because she wasn't seriously injured. This allowed him to hide and search for Dev, and eventually he was able to find Aster and Vakini. The guy found them in the Middle Kingdom. Since the Heavenly One was destroyed, they could only sleep here. The lands of darkness were abandoned by people who considered them sinister, but thanks to this, they became a suitable place where they could gain power. Our heroine came to the conclusion that he was planning to take revenge, wasn't he? The young man replied that, yes, he would awaken all his comrades and gain strength again in order to destroy Camilla. After this, he will restore the Tree of Life and rebuild the Heavenly Kingdom, for such is his duty, Derlot. Adele thought to herself how stupid he was. In her past life, she thought that his position as Derlot made him cold-blooded, but in reality, he simply does not notice this, because he has been alone for a long time, has not learned to express anger, but only steadfastly endures all adversity, which is why his eyes are full of sadness. After which she touched him and said that he was extremely brave, although he had probably been lonely for a very long time. From now on, she would be with him, so he shouldn't worry. The Duke wondered if he was truly lonely, and that was why he wanted to tell her everything about his past. Maybe that was why his hands grew cold when she touched them. A month had passed since our heroine's arrival at the estate. The servants were dragging the tree back and forth, as they remembered that it should be on the training ground, and not here. As soon as the girl looked around, she immediately began to give out a bunch of instructions. At first, she wanted to take care of the garden, because it was too unkempt. Let her hire a gardener and an architect too. Horace had an automatic answer for everything. Let her do it the way she wants. But still, the guy liked that things around him became more lively and everyone looked happy. Meanwhile, Vaken burst into the Duke's office and exclaimed that the captain had really gotten married. When Benzark replied that yes, the young man began asking a bunch of questions about why, when, on whom, where, how long ago. Leffa replied because she is a prophet. About a month ago, when he was stuck in the lands of ice. Her name is Adel, she is an aristocrat and the Lawton family. Is it worth going into detail about how the wedding went? Or is that enough information? Vaken exclaimed that there was no need to interfere. In fact, he was asking the captain. Aster objected that he was not asking questions, but shouting. The young man shouted that he had told him not to interfere. He should have prevented this. The young man asked why this was happening all of a sudden, since it was he who personally insisted on the wedding ceremony. The guy was very angry that he had stolen this opportunity from him, because it was he who was supposed to find a worthy wife for the captain. Lef hissed, why was he clinging to him if he wanted it that way? Then he needed to get moving with the search. Vaken exclaimed, well, okay, he'd better go and see what she's like than hang around here with both of them. Aster muttered, what kind of a man is he, always causing so much fuss when he appears? Does the Duke want to stop him? The young man sighed heavily and replied that, no, let him go. Lef said cautiously that he felt that even he needed to treat her with respect. Horace replied that even if they did nothing, she herself would put him in his place just as well as anyone else. I thought to myself that it still bothered him a little, so later I would have to explain to him how to behave. On the way, Vaken continued to be angry. How could Aster do such a thing? She is not just the Duke's wife, but the wife of Derlo himself. How could he decide such an important issue while the guy was in the lands of ice? If this girl was nothing special, the young man would immediately drive her away, after which he called out to her using the word, hey! Our heroine heard this, but did not turn around. Then she continued giving instructions to the servants, and telling them to bring her a cup of hot tea. Vaken began trying to get attention again and was indignant that she was ignoring him. The young man couldn't stand it, turned to her like, "Hey you," and shouted that she didn't know who he was. Adele replied that that was exactly it. Did he know who she was? Or was he being rude because he didn't know? Let Vaken answer her. The young man exclaimed how she knew his name, and, more importantly, why the girl allowed herself to communicate with him in a disrespectful manner. Our heroine looked at him confidently and told him to answer her question, whether he knew who Adele was. The guy replied that the new Grand Duchess was really just an ordinary human girl. Our heroine interrupted him and said that her name was Adeline Lawton. She is the wife of Duke Horace Benzark, whom he actually serves, and Vakian just treated his wife disrespectfully. Therefore, he doesn't respect his master either. Is he really going to continue to treat him like that? The young man turned completely red and was even at a loss as to what to answer her, so he mumbled something unintelligible. The girl noticed the weapon behind his back and said that it was the holy sword Nickergrassi. When the boy exclaimed how she knew this, Adele replied that did not Horace tell her that she was a prophet? The young man calls himself a devoted servant, but he doesn't even bother to listen to what his master tells him. This sword is sleeping now, but she can awaken it. Will it acknowledge her if Adeline does it? Vaken replied that this was nonsense. The sword fell asleep when the tree of life of the heavenly kingdom died. Until it comes to life, the weapon will not awaken. How can a simple person cope with this? The girl replied that they had nothing to lose if they tried, since its previous owner was Commander Fabian, so wasn't he? The young man replied that he had lost his sword in battle and had only recently managed to find it. This weapon is important not only to him, because its owner is the commander himself. Will she be able to awaken him? Vaken keeps it because the sword has lost its light, and when its power returns, he wants to give it to the captain. Therefore, he rephrases his question. Is it true that the girl will be able to return this weapon from Derlo? Our heroine replied that since he wanted it so much, she would do everything possible. The reason he's trying to awaken the sword is because he wants Vaken to use it to protect his Derloti. Then she touched the stone on the handle with her finger and began to whisper spells in the Dev language. The guy thought to himself that it was impossible for her to be human. But who was the girl then? After some time, Adeline said that everything was ready. Did he believe her now? The young man could not understand why this woman, who was much smaller than him, resembled this strong figure. Then he asked forgiveness for his rudeness and let him express his belated respect to Duchess Adeline Benzark. His name is Vaken Vin, will now always follow her instructions and protect Derlo with this sword. The girl replied that in that case she would also introduce herself. Her name is Adeline Loten. Let him call her by her first name from now on, and she hopes that they will get along. When Vaken returned to the office, Aster did not miss the opportunity to say that he now looked even more stupid than when he left. Maybe the captain's wife beat him up, or maybe he suddenly fell ill. What's wrong with him? The young man immediately pulled out the activated sword in front of him and exclaimed that they should just look at this. The guys were shocked, so they started asking how he managed to do it, whether this sword was sleeping. The guy replied that, yes, the holy sword was dormant until it met Adeline, and then it started glowing after she tapped it a couple of times. It was the girl who made him glow. At first he thought that the tree of life had begun to grow again on their side, but then they themselves would have felt it. When Lefa said that the woman was a prophet, he thought it was stupid. But after hearing her use Dev speech, his doubts completely disappeared. Aster was indignant. Why was he picking a fight without even having a reason? The young man immediately asked if he really wanted to fight, now that he actually had a holy sword. But his opponent objected that even if he didn't have such a weapon, he wasn't worthy of hitting him even once, so he suggested going to the square. The young man thought to himself how she could speak this language. People can learn the Dev and Akwar languages, but they cannot speak them. Only human prophets can do this. Adele is none other than a prophet. That's why he rushed into marriage. But why is he so worried? Meanwhile, our heroine remembered that in the past, the sword was awakened by Hela, and she was told that she was useless. But this time, everything happened differently. To tell the truth, she was bluffing and didn't even hope that she would succeed. Maybe it was because of magic this time, but she shouldn't use it in front of others like this time. Vaken was also a little surprised. After Aster taught her magic in her past life, She practiced alone whenever she had the chance. As a result, she can now use magic instantly without repeating the activation word, which is how she was able to make the sword float. This happened a year or two before her death. She studied magic for Horus, but she never had a chance to use it and could only show him what she could do to help somehow. But the young man only hissed that she should never use that power in front of others again. After that incident, the girl really never used it in front of others. In fact, the magic she practiced in the past was not something difficult. If the magic itself didn't surprise him, then the problem must have been that she didn't say the activation word. Perhaps it should have been done. If it was a problem then nothing has changed now. It would be good if all her memories were intact, but judging by his expression, it seemed like he was scolding her, but it felt like he was more worried about her. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the maid, who asked whether a tea table should be brought here. The house of Duke Benzark became so lively with the appearance of the lady. Everyone was incredibly happy about it. Then she asked if they were building a training ground on the other side. Our heroine replied that yes, they would hire new knights to help the Duke. The maid noted that the lady never stops coming up with new things. It's very cool. Adele thought to herself that it was because her past life was boring. Although she couldn't talk about it, she said out loud that she wanted to take advantage of it so that Vakan would teach her fencing. In fact, she dreams of becoming the best swordswoman wielding the famous sword. Perhaps she will succeed after training with him. The maid decided that it was a joke. The girl noted to herself that her intonation was playful, but she definitely needed to learn fencing. This will help hide the fact that she has magic, and she should take advantage of this opportunity to obtain a famous sword. With it, even if she uses an aura blade, people will be convinced that she is a simple swordswoman. Previously, the young man always told her to hide behind his back, but she doesn't want to do that anymore. Then, our heroine said out loud that she sincerely wants to become stronger, so much so that no one could influence her. The maid said that she was not sure what she was worried about. But please don't. The mistress is already strong enough, so no one would dare to pressure her. Adelina was very pleased with these words, so she thanked Rebecca. After some time, our heroine had a dream about Astor, asking if they really needed to take her with them. Had he forgotten that he almost died because of her? The young man replied that she was going with them, and no objections would be accepted. The girl was very ashamed. No one had ever expected anything from her. But why did Horace continue to take her with him? When asked what she had found out today, Adele replied that nothing, no answer again today. She couldn't help him. Waking up suddenly, our heroine thought about when these memories would stop causing her emotions. How much longer will she have to prove that she is useful in order to erase the memories of the past? But now this room belongs to her. It is not that wretched and cramped closet, but chambers that are worthy of a real duchess. Now the young man does not come to her every night and does not interrogate her. The girl should be happy, but why on the night when he didn't come, she feels so lonely? She definitely hates and despises him. But how wonderful it would be if her heart forgot about him. 2 months later, Astor was wondering how they managed to build the building so quickly, what it would be used for, and whether Adeline had accidentally told him. When there was no answer, the guy realized that he simply didn't know, and came to the conclusion that now everything could be found out more quickly from the Duchess. Vakon thoughtfully said that at this rate, soon they would call her captain. Although she was already a captain, since she was married to him, Leffa was surprised why there were suddenly so many compliments addressed to her. Lawton suddenly appeared, explaining that it was a new dormitory for the knights they would hire. But she privately thought that she had actually used magic to help complete it, but she wouldn't tell anyone. The young man asked why they needed a dormitory since their knightly order was not that large. The girl replied that in addition to Dev, they would include mercenaries in its composition. The young man couldn't resist and asked, in a rather uncensored tone, what kind of nonsense was going on. The Duke muttered that he didn't remember being told anything like that. Adeline replied that this couldn't be. She wouldn't have made such an important decision at random, because she clearly remembers that Maven gave her permission. Somehow it's strange. Horace began to vaguely remember how he had been on autopilot, agreeing to everything she asked. Astor hissed that he urgently needed to talk to the captain, so he needed to step away for a minute. Viken asked what she meant by a knightly order. She said that there would be mercenaries instead of regular knights. Did she know how rude they were and how difficult they were? Our heroine replied that she knew. But how long were they going to act as a trio? Dev is a bit small, not to mention most are dormant, so it will take time to wake them up. They need to get the info on Akur and wake up Dev. Even if they recruited ordinary knights, how many of them would be able to pass through the forest of darkness? Aster finally realized why she had decided to recruit groups of mercenaries. The girl replied that yes, they were driven by the thirst for profit, and she did not think that this was particularly bad. She even thinks that they are similar in that they become increasingly harsh in order to survive. "So let Leffa teach them properly," the boy exclaimed. "Why him? And why so suddenly?" He had never trained people. The girl replied that everything was fine. The young man would definitely cope with everything, and she noted to herself that it was he who had trained mercenaries in her past life. Then she turned her attention to the guys whose eyes were shining, as if they were saying, "Ah, what about them?" Adeline couldn't help but laugh, then apologized and said she didn't mean to, but they both made puppy eyes, so she couldn't help herself. Wiping away tears of laughter, she added that she had other business with Vacan and that she needed to discuss something with Horace. It was very good that the young people had all gathered here together, after which she noted to herself that they would definitely think she was crazy, but she said that she wanted to make a passage through the forest of darkness. The Duke didn't even listen to what she tried to explain further, and answered briefly, "No." Lawton noted that this was the expected answer, so she asked him if he thought she would suggest such a thing without thinking. Benzark replied that even so, he forbade it. She could decorate the mansion, plant a garden, even build new military training grounds, and create a knightly order. None of this mattered, but even she would not be allowed to fulfill her last request. Our heroine objected. Had he forgotten that she was a prophet? Did he really think that he didn't know that in the forest on these lands there were plants from the heavenly kingdom? The young man was indignant that even knowing this, she still planned to do something so ridiculous. Adeline flared up. How could he know if it was ridiculous or not, if he didn't even listen to her properly? She will never do anything to harm him or Dev. Her goal is to fulfill all his wishes in 10 years, and she wants to spend the rest of her life on these lands in comfort and prosperity. Aster was surprised by such a short period, because they expected to manage it in about 200 years. Adele replied that it was possible for her, so she asked Vacan to start teaching her how to wield a sword from that day on. It looks like she will have to protect her doubting husband herself. The guys looked at him in complete bewilderment, because how could his wife protect the captain? The young man hissed that he would finish them off if they started laughing, but the boys couldn't contain themselves at all. When everyone had laughed enough, the girl asked if they would now listen to her. She would tell them why she wanted to make a passage through the forest of darkness. Firstly, our heroine plans to go to Movine Island. Aster was confused, so he said that they were just discussing the lands of darkness. So why this island all of a sudden? Vacan was also surprised if she was going to go there personally. It was too remote a place, so it was impossible to teleport, and the journey by ship would take about a week. The girl replied that, yes, she would go on her own. Plus, she would stop by Mokran. When the guys objected that this was a scary city where all sorts of crimes happened, Adeline replied that she knew about it. She has 3 good reasons. She did say that she plans to make a road through the forest of darkness, but that's not all. She knows what this forest means to Devo. The strange plants that fill these lands are, in fact, divine plants. Because they took root in the Middle Earth, they began to look strange, but their amazing powers did not disappear anywhere. They protect the Benzark Duchy, and if normal people set foot on these lands, they will be captured by the energy of the plants and will go crazy or die. It is impossible to resist divine power, but it is possible to resist the embodiment of divine powers through the bodies of ordinary people. The girl understands what they are worried about, so she said that after the Great War, the Devs, who received a bad prediction, planted divine seeds on this earth. In order to increase their power after losing the divine lands, they did not want these lands to be open to everyone, but she can both close and open the road there. This place needs to be thinned out from those who want to awaken Akari. Perhaps they should throw a fancy banquet, since it had been about 100 years since he had awakened Aster and Vacan, and had also regained his name. The guy replied that that was true. The girl asked if he was currently waiting for a chance to enter these lands. She could learn about the awakened Akur with the help of those who got there. Our heroine assures him that the life of those who returned from there will not be long, so the reason to go to Maven Island is connected with this. She knows all the theories. But if she wants to open the road, she must first get the materials. The guy asked if it was necessary to go for this, since there were enough materials here. The girl replied that if the issue was only about materials, she would have stayed. But the food here was terrible. In these parts, it is difficult to personally select servants. So while he is implementing his plans, he will also introduce them to a special cook who lives there. Besides, he has a high-speed boat to get to the island. Astor asked cautiously if she had to go that far. Our heroine replied that, of course, she had just explained everything, or perhaps he didn't have enough facts. Lefa replied that this mercenary was from the famous city of Makran. It was possible to borrow a ship from another place. It was too dangerous. And what if he was inadequate? Adeline replied that only after that would she have the courage to go through the lands of darkness. But she noted to herself that if she now offered to wake the sirens with such a reaction, they would refuse her. So she simply added that she had reasons for boarding that particular high-speed vessel. The young man said that it was difficult to understand now. But as soon as she left these lands, she would have to understand that there were only enemies around, and the girl was an important person for them. Our heroine replied that she was pleased to hear this, but she also had a lot of things to do for them. As she said, she needed what they had, so she would do everything possible. She noted to herself that it would be good to stop there. In any case, they were trying to benefit from each other, so he didn't need to make such a face. If she suddenly became useless, then everything would change again. Suddenly, the young man asked when she planned to leave. When Astor tried to reason with him, Horace objected that he had heard the reason. Was there a need to stop her? If it was dangerous, then guards could be assigned. Then he turned to our heroine, like, "Hey!" She immediately objected that her name was Adeline. The young man hissed and said, "Okay, Adeline." But she asked him not to hiss. The captain blushed and said that he would go with her, so she shouldn't worry. He would do everything she wanted. Our heroine was taken aback by this turn of events and involuntarily exclaimed, Benzark asked why she had such a reaction. The girl apologized and replied that she simply could not even imagine that he could say such a thing. "Thank you for that." The young man replied that there was nothing to thank her for, since she was the Duke's wife and could obviously do whatever she wanted. Adeline wondered if the young man could change, if she could even slightly hope for it. Meanwhile, Hella Alton didn't understand what was happening, why she couldn't see Horace's future Benzark. Astor Lefa and Vakain Veen. The girl definitely has to see him. Since when did everything change so much? The girl had previously clearly seen how the guys were taking her with them to the lands of darkness. She does not see through the blood of a rooster, nor through the blood of a sheep or a goat. She even used a pig, not to mention the future. Even the present is not shown. Hella can see the future of others perfectly well. But why doesn't it work with them? What's the problem? He would simply consider it useless. Meanwhile, Horace was going over Adeline's words about how he knew whether it was ridiculous or not, if he hadn't even listened to her. Her goal is to fulfill all his wishes within 10 years, and she wants to spend the rest of her life on these lands in comfort and prosperity. It looks like our heroine will have to defend her doubting husband herself. The girl was confused because she couldn't even imagine that he could say something like that. Thank him for that. Astor's voice, which said that they needed to talk about whether he was really going to go with her to Makran. When Benzark replied that yes, the guy asked how it happened. Adeline is a valuable person to them. She can neither get hurt, nor moreover die. But he says that he will take her to that place. The Duke angrily asked if he looked weak or something, but the young man objected that that was not the problem. The captain is stronger than anyone, but fighting and protecting someone at the same time is a completely different matter. Besides, is Makran an ordinary city? When aristocrats go there, they always hire a lot of security. It is a city where kidnappings, robberies, murders, everything is hushed up. It's not that he didn't trust Adeline, but anything can happen. If he needs to, then let him go. But she can't. And anyway, since when does Horace listen to anyone so obediently? He usually ignores everyone. The Duke wondered why he really began to think that he had to do everything she wanted, from empty demands to absurd ones. Why did he think he had to do all this? Why? When he looked into those eyes, his whole body seemed to freeze, after which the young man asked if he had started to behave too strangely. The young man replied that it was very awkward that he was asking about this right now. Whatever he says now, the captain will still go. Despite his words, he knows that Horus is changing. There is nothing bad about it, so he does nothing. There are blueprints and magic stones in the warehouse. There are still a lot of them there, so let him process them into mana and take them with him, because it seems like this will happen more and more often. Suddenly, the young man looked at him and thanked him for his help. Astor was stunned for a second, as it was not something you usually hear from a captain, after which he said that he doesn't know what Adeline did to him, but it's interesting. He will get as many magic stones as possible and earn even more money. It is necessary to put the mine in order. After some time, our heroine noted that it seemed to have gotten colder today. The maid said that it was already December, so she should dress warmer. The girl objected that this coat would do, but she was worried about Catherine. Adele later buys her something similar and sends it, because she doesn't want her man to freeze. The maid thanked her. Almost immediately, they were happily greeted by the butler, who said that he had called Vakan to help with the luggage because he was weak and would not be able to carry it. The man said that since he was a weakling, he should train more, but the young man objected that he was simply slender. In truth, in my past life, the reason for going to the island was the danger of being attacked by evil spirits. It is a fact that the power of Akur becomes stronger due to the awakened spirits. If in this life everything is the same as in the past, then the sirens will awaken in the year 517. But we can't wait until then, as Maven, trapped by the sirens, along with Astor, died in battle with them. Therefore, it is necessary to act while the sirens are still asleep, after which she told the butler not to worry, because she will take care of him. Fionn asked in confusion if taking care of everyone was her hobby or something. He said that she would protect the captain, now Maven. The boy exclaimed, "Does he really seem so weak to her? It's just that all the people around their master are like monsters." Vaken told him to stop showing off, and if something happens, then hide without hesitation. The young man replied that he could no longer talk to him here, so he would go first. Our heroine said that he didn't mean it out of malice, but was just joking. He would definitely like him. Vaken was indignant at first. How could he like him? But the girl convincingly said that it would be so. The image of the young man crying over his friend's body immediately popped into her head, so she thought that she couldn't let that happen again. Vin decided to clarify the name of the mercenary they would meet this time. The girl was surprised that she hadn't said this earlier, after which she explained that he was called a mercenary from the Eagle faction. In other words, he was a black wind. The young man was taken aback and asked if she understood what he was like. When Adeline replied that yes, the guy asked if she also knew that he mercilessly hands over people. Lawton replied that she knew that too. The guy was indignant. How after that, she still wanted to bring such a person. Our heroine replied that sometimes all the guys think of her as some kind of child. Vaken objected that this was not what he meant, but that it was very dangerous. Adeline replied, "So what? They tell her to hide behind their backs every time? All her actions are dangerous. And what? Should I give it all up now, or what? Since prophecy is their power, right? The guys must be worried. You can draw such a conclusion since they are so worried about her. But she is not a doll who will act as she is told." A few minutes ago, a guy asked if it was her hobby to take care of everyone. She must look so small and weak in their eyes. She doesn't think she can hold a sword. But let her remember that she is the one who made this sword glow, which means that she also has the power to protect someone. Thanks to someone, she already understood that it is not worth just hiding behind someone else's back, so let him understand her too. After some time, those who were about to set off on their journey teleported to the right place. The Duke immediately asked if everything was okay with her. The girl replied that everything was fine. This time, it was not as difficult as it was the first time. Vaken was surprised to himself that she was okay, only the second time. But it was not surprising, because she was not an ordinary person, but a seer. People considered Dave and Akur as gods, but in reality, the gods existed separately, and those who take over the powers of the gods are the seers. These people are divine beings. Dev and Akur only used the magic of the Tree of Life, but the seers can occasionally see the future through dreams. It's obvious that she can use teleportation so easily only because she's a seer. In fact, the young man is very happy that our heroine married the captain. The Duke thought to himself that he was definitely out of his mind, and he became even more convinced of this after talking to Astor. When it came to Adele, he turned into a fool. But perhaps the young man was a fool from the very beginning, so even at such a moment, he thinks about how beautiful she is. At that moment, our heroine felt simply awful. It seemed to her that she was about to throw up because of the teleportation. On the way, Havin said that he heard that orcs lived in the area. Originally, it was a forest in which monsters lived, so sometimes they attack people. Having looked at the defensive structures, the girl noted that, compared to other cities, the border is really much more tense. The young man added that this was precisely why he was worried about her. Our heroine understood that he was expecting some kind of response, so she replied that he had told her to hide behind him or Horus in case of danger. So thank you for worrying about her. While Benzark came to the conclusion that she liked being taken care of and decided that next time he would be the first, Havin reported that the guys had already arrived in the city of Mokran. Immediately, people started shouting for people to go to Maho, because they have the best baths, at the most affordable price, the best and most comfortable bed. Another man was shouting at people to come in and have lunch, because they had a free city special soup. Our heroine said that she didn't expect there to be so many barkers around. The young man stated that the city is a city. There are many tourists and mercenaries here. Adeline replied that that's exactly it. There are so many tourists, so she doesn't understand why he didn't allow her to come here. The Duke objected that he had actually agreed in the end, and Lawton replied that she was grateful for that too. Then she added that she knew there were a lot of mercenaries there, but that there were so many tourists was unexpected. Horace explained that the taxes are low, so you can buy rare goods at an affordable price, and there are also many arenas and gambling houses. Many people come to see it. Our heroine noted to herself that she thought that he was already tired of explaining everything to her, but it seems she was wrong. Suddenly, a cry was heard that a tournament of the strongest would soon take place, and a real beast from hell would perform. After catching the leaflet, Benzark asked if there was another reason why the streets were so noisy. Vacan replied that at that time in Macrane, there was always noise precisely because of this, then asked the girl if this was the first time she had seen it. At this time, Adeline was reading what was written on the leaflet. A city landmark. Open competitions. The competition takes place in the form of a tournament. People bet money on the winner. If the bet works, they can win a decent amount. And she, as a person from the past, knows perfectly well who will win this game. Lawton remembers the words of the captain of the Eagle faction. He said that, "It is obvious that the fighter from hell will make stupid mistakes and lose." Remembers how people complained that this was a competition where the organizers made money off the spectators. Since our heroine knows very well who will win, she asked why they don't earn some money today. Vacan asked in surprise if she had ever seen a fight. It would be very brutal. Adele replied that everything was fine, and besides, after her arrival in the duchy, they hadn't stopped spending money, had they? And they had decorated the garden and built a building for the knights and changed the interior. So this time she's going to earn some extra money. The guy asked if she wanted to place a bet. The young man is an excellent judge of character and will immediately understand whether he will win or not just by looking at him. If she doesn't know who to bet on, let her just tell him. Then he remembered that she was a seer and added that he thought he would choose the same one as Lawton's. While Havin was suffering from his own stupidity, our heroine asked the Duke if he would participate. Scratching the back of his head, the young man thoughtfully asked what bets were anyway. The young man exclaimed that the captain had lived for 500 years and did not know what bets were. How was this possible? Horace replied that he had no time at all to do useless things. The young man objected that betting was not a useless thing. It was like a life and death battle. Benzark asked how they could play with something like that. Do their powers appear out of thin air? Vacan exclaimed that it was Roman. Doesn't he know that too? Then he began to explain that, simply put, like gambling, if it's tomorrow, then the information about the fighters must already have been posted on the board. They just need to choose who to bet on and put in the money. The Duke noted that the coefficient of popular fighters decreases, while that of unknown fighters, on the contrary, increases. Our heroine must have some other reason to earn money. The girl said that he was very smart, and she noted to herself what kind of facial expression that was. In his past life, he had also made such a warm one. The captain tapped her on the forehead with his finger and said that there was no need to get too carried away with gambling, because they already had a lot of money. There used to be a man named Polan. He loved fighting very much, But he went bankrupt, so Horace helped him. But as soon as he got the money, he immediately spent it on gambling. There were such people in those days too, but if the girl wants to experience the thrill, then he must work hard so that she never dies of hunger. Our heroine immediately blushed and objected that such a thing would never happen. The young man noted to himself that this was the first time the captain had spoken about the past, this special event. Even when they first asked him, he did not answer anything. Looking at how Adeline was indignant and asked him not to treat her like a child, the guy noted that Horace really wanted to talk about this only with her. It was very interesting to see him like this. The Duke didn't like this strange atmosphere at all. Then the young man exclaimed that he had to go to the room first, because he had spent a lot of effort to find it. Adeline thanked him for taking care of the accommodation in advance. Vacan replied that he believed that she could not sleep in just any place, but even if she could, the captain would be very angry. At the hotel, they were met by a man who exclaimed that these were their guests. It seemed they had booked one royal room for couples and one suite. Our heroine was surprised to herself that this was a room that simple aristocrats could not afford. Could it really be for her? Then it dawned on her that in addition to the royal room, they were also talking about a room for couples. The man immediately began to advertise a bedroom for two and said that it had a huge bathtub, so they could have a good rest. Adeline looked at Vassan hopefully and asked if it was true. The young man did not suspect anything, so he exclaimed for her to enjoy. The girl immediately began to mutter that they would really use one room. Perhaps they should choose another for Horace. The Duke interrupted her and said that, after all, they were married. Wouldn't it be strange to use different rooms? Lawton didn't understand what was going on. She had never seen him share a room with anyone, not even her, technically his wife of 25 years. When Adeline whispered that it would be uncomfortable for him too, the young man asked her why she thought that. Did she really dislike sharing a room with him that much? The girl tried to calm herself down and persuaded herself not to ask what he meant. No need to repeat the same stupidity. No need to fall in love with him again because of sweet words. Our heroine has come so far already, so she just needs to focus on protecting her place and not getting hurt again. So she sighed heavily and replied that, okay, since it was already booked, there was nothing to be done. Let them show me their royal room quickly. My legs are simply unbearably sore. The young man muttered that, okay, he would do as she wanted, he had promised. A couple of minutes later, the man solemnly introduced them to the royal room for couples. From the layout, our heroine realized that they would have two different rooms, which could not but please her. But then, I was a little disappointed that now it was clear why the young man was so calm. The Duke went out onto the balcony and called Adeline to come over for a minute. The beautiful view simply amazed her. The whole city was as if in the palm of her hand. When asked if she liked it, our heroine exclaimed, "Of course!" The guy thought to himself that this was a feeling he had never felt before. He would like to continue to see her smile, but he even liked it. Meanwhile, Coteen reported that interesting people were seen at lunch. A girl dressed like a man, one nobleman, and one guard. The captain replied, "So what? How could they be interesting?" The guy explained that they had rented the king's room at the Maho Hotel because he knew it was a bedroom that couldn't be booked during the fighting season. The man stated that it meant they had a lot of money. He hated being bored, so let him bring the girl when she was alone. Then they could touch some coins. After some time, our heroine admired how beautiful the lace was. She had heard that this area was famous for it. Vacan said that if they hadn't come here, Adeline would have been offended by them for the rest of her life. After which he asked how long they would stay here. He needed to be informed so that they could prepare a carriage to the capital in advance. The girl replied that 3 days would be enough, but she thought to herself, because when it is more important to get to Maven Island, if these are mercenaries from the Eagle, then tomorrow, as soon as they smell the money, they will immediately get in touch. Fiend said that he would then go to the communications salon, and the two of them could look around here for now. Our heroine looked at the Duke and said that, in that case, they would continue shopping for now. After a while, Lawton thought that she had never expected him to continue to carry out all orders without saying a word. When she wanted to take at least one package from him, because it was probably heavy, the young man objected that it wasn't worth it. He thought that she had something else to see. Our heroine thought about how they would go shopping if he was already so busy. So she said that Horace was obviously tired, so maybe he would take the bags to the room and come back, and then they would have some tea together. In the meantime, she will go shopping here on her own. The young man asked if she could handle it alone. Lawton replied that yes, he should come back quickly. Ladies sometimes want to go shopping alone. Waving her hand after him, our heroine thought that while no one was there, she needed to check something. On the way to the hotel, the Duke began to notice that someone was following him and following him. As he turned the corner, the observer began to get angry to himself. Where was Horace rushing to? If he let him go, he would be lost. But suddenly, the Duke grabbed him and angrily asked what he was doing. Why was he following him? Depending on his answer, the young man will decide whether to kill him or spare his life. He noted to himself that he had not come to kill him. Was he really just going to rob him? Then he let the stranger go and said that it would be better for him not to catch his eye again. As the attacker fell to the ground, something fell out of his pocket. Benzark picked it up and noted that it belonged to the Eagle mercenary clan. So why would they be chasing him? Meanwhile, our heroine decided to try something and used her magic. The magic she practiced was infinity magic, which was a normal spatial magic that expanded a limited space. She heard that since it was a very ancient magic, it was difficult to use. Horace had reacted the same way in the past. It was obvious that she had a special gift, and to be honest, she liked it. I wonder when the Duke will return. She recently asked the store owner to inform her of his arrival. Perhaps they missed each other. But suddenly, a voice was heard saying that their drinks had been brought. It was very strange, because she was going to order when the young man returned. Suddenly, a man ran into the room and immediately put a handkerchief to her face. The girl found out that it was Cosine. She didn't expect that they would meet like this, without Benzark. This is the deputy head of the mercenary clan, Eagles. He was one of her people. The guy always said that he didn't understand why they treated her like that, why she put up with it. The Duchess here is Adeline, and he is always on her side. Obviously, there were other people who cared about our heroine. She had to find them because she had to save them. But why? These people are much stronger than her. Why did she forget about this, about her past life? After the Great War, Dev was defeated again. Vakan, Aster, Maven, Kotsin, Abid, they all died. The moment the sword pierced her heart, there was no one left on Horace's side. When the boys met on the street, Vakan asked in surprise what the captain was doing there. Wasn't he with Adeline? When Benzark reported that she sent him to his room, saying that he was too loaded with bags, the guy could not hold back and began to laugh loudly. The Duke was indignant to himself. Why did he cross paths with him? It turned out that he obeys every word of that woman. The young man noted to himself that without realizing it, Horace was embarrassed that he had seen his weak spot. It must be admitted that Lotin was simply incredible, after which he asked where the girl was. Maybe she was waiting somewhere nearby. The young man replied that she said she would stay and continue shopping. Vakan shouted, "Does this mean that she is somewhere alone now? This is Mokran, a city where you don't know what will happen. Even men only move around here with security. How could he leave Adeline alone?" The guy turned around abruptly and started walking back, thinking to himself that he had lost his head because of that smile. What a fool. What was so good about her offering to have some tea? I hope nothing happened. The man replied that he did not know what he was talking about. They had never had such a guest. Vin asked him to think carefully. This is a beautiful girl with white hair and purple eyes. The guy objected that he should think for himself, whether he knew how many people were disappearing nearby. How can a young man remember everyone? She probably just went for a walk. When he added that he did not remember the lady with white hair, dressed in men's clothing, the Duke suddenly grabbed him by the throat, after which he hissed, "Did they tell him that she was dressed in men's clothing? How did he know about it? If he knows something, he better tell you quickly, otherwise he'll die right here." Vakan shouted that he could kill him like that, and if he did, they would not be able to find the girl. So the Duke let him go. Then Havin sat down opposite him and said that the guy himself said that many people were disappearing in the area. Wasn't he afraid of being one of them? Did he remember anything now? Stuttering, the young man said that our heroine had been taken by the Black Wind. Meanwhile, Adele began to come to her senses. Her head was splitting wildly, and she heard an argument about how, after all, he was told that he shouldn't be rude to her. Why she lost consciousness. Our heroine was thinking about what kind of memories these were. What happened when they were all dead? Now Dev have obviously become stronger. They are not so weak that they will die in an instant. Have Akura awakened? Dev's fall is still far away. If she slowly regains her memory, then perhaps she can change everything. The guy said that if she woke up, then let her answer the question. Stop thinking already. The girl decided that she needed to sort out the situation first, and then said that she wanted to meet them anyway, and they made things easier for her. Then she greeted Abed. The young man said that her face was unfamiliar to him, so how did she know his past name? Pushing aside the sword he had pointed at her, Adeline said that she would regret it if he was killed. The guy noted that she was funny. Did you know how many times he had heard something like that when dealing with aristocrats? Our heroine asked why she should know this. In any case, his goal is money, so there is no need to waste each other's time. The young man asked why she was so sure that it was only money. Adeline replied that it was simple. If you think about it a little, then she stayed in the best hotel, where even an aristocrat would have a hard time renting a room. And here the grandfather is all alone, without protection, walking around the city, and this is an ideal chance for kidnapping. Some people, without a second thought, do not take security with them, but there are those who are so strong that they simply do not need it. Suddenly, a shrill cry was heard from one of their men, who was shouting that some kind of monsters had gotten to them. The doors then opened, and the Duke appeared with Vakane, who declared that they should not even try to escape. Abed raised his hands and muttered that now it was clear why she was so confident, because it turned out she had reasons. Vin immediately asked if she was okay. The girl thought to herself, what kind of situation is this? Even she didn't expect this. So she was just going to negotiate with them and give them what they wanted after telling them that she was the Duke of Darkness' wife. After which she asked, confused, how they both knew where she was. The young man waved his hand and said that he didn't even have to ask. It was all the captain's fault. When they heard about the Black Wind, Vakane said that he was from the Eagle clan. Adeline wanted to hire him. They can't just go and destroy them all, so what do they do now? The captain immediately said that it was necessary to use search magic. Vin tried to object, but he did not listen to him. The young man exclaimed whether he was in his right mind. If he used it, then Captain Aker would be able to find out his location, and the Duke would be in danger if that happened. The young man said the only thing that made absolutely no difference to him. Horace said that enough was enough. It was time to go. He didn't kill these people only because of their previous conversation. The girl now couldn't help but think that he had come to save her, but the guy wasn't that kind of person, so why did he continue to confuse her? Taking off his hood, Abid said that he had never seen anything like it. Maybe they could explain something. Our heroine thought to herself that she had completely forgotten about her goals because of Horace. After which she asked for forgiveness, and said that she had not expected this either, so she would introduce herself, albeit belatedly. Her name is Adeline Lawton. She is the wife of the Duke of Darkness, who stands next to her. When the young man heard who this guy was, he felt very uneasy. The girl sat down opposite him and said that now they could talk. Abed thought to himself that these were not negotiations, but threats. Suddenly, Adeline offered him to become her husband's faithful knight. The young man even spat out the drink from surprise and asked if she was joking. Benzark immediately hissed. Was there something he didn't like about his wife's words? Stuttering a little, the guy asked if she understood what mercenaries did. Our heroine asked whether she would suggest this without knowing all the details. Abed objected that this was not what he meant. For wasn't the Duke the one whom even the Emperor did not dare touch? Why would they even need a mercenary like him? Besides, the Black Wind has too bad a reputation. Lawton replied that she was well aware of Kanta's reputation. He was into anything that made money, and their name meant that after them there was only despair, didn't it? The young man could not resist asking who she was, and how she knew his old last name, when the girl answered that it didn't matter where she knew it from. But what was important was that she knew about it. The guy asked her to explain anyway. He thought to himself that they had so much money. Why would they need it? If he was the Duke of the Darklands, he could hire anyone he wanted as a knight. After which it dawned on the young man why they were interested in them. Then he said that knights with good abilities will not set foot on the lands of darkness, so it is easier for them to take mercenaries who will do anything for money. Lauder answered that it is true. This is one of the reasons. Our heroine is also confident that they will become outstanding knights. When asked why she was so sure, Adeline replied that she was a seer, but the rest was a secret, so she couldn't tell him. The young man looked at the Duke and asked if his wife had always been so stubborn. Vacan picked up that this is all her charm, isn't it, Captain? Horace replied that sometimes he himself wants to know what thoughts are going through that little head. Abed grabbed his head and replied that, let's say, okay, their clan will join the knightly order. But what can they offer them in return? The girl replied that it was safe housing and money, as well as good education. The young man objected that they already had all of this. What kind of proposal was this? It didn't suit them. Vacan and Benzark silently grabbed their swords and began to head towards him. Our heroine asked what they wanted then. Let him put forward his proposal. The head of the mercenaries muttered dreamily that, let's say, the whole world, the whole continent of Roman. Not bad, right? Lawton said that the whole world is very interesting. She didn't think that they dream of conquering the entire continent. The guy replied that if their mercenary clan became knights, then she should accept it. The girl threw up her hands and noted that, apparently, she was mistaken. It turns out that his world is just a continent. The young man asked, in the sense of just a continent. Actually, they are now talking about unimaginable things. When Adeline stated that she thought his world was Alice, the boy became angry and hissed. How does she know that? The Duke of Darkness immediately told him, in a commanding tone, to behave a little more calmly. After this, the young man told her to answer him honestly whether she could find that girl. When our heroine replied that, yes, the guy said that he didn't know where she heard about her, but he didn't think of becoming a knight just because of her. Adeline stated that he would regret it if he refused. She knows very well what he is worried about, and understands that she cannot accept this offer so easily, because she is afraid that they will simply use them and throw them away. The young man replied that, yes, that was precisely why he hated aristocrats. It's unbearable when a person is simply used and thrown away. Lawton noted that she knows the feeling well. The guy shouted, what can she know about this? As an aristocrat, can she understand their feelings? This is a lie. Our heroine replied that, yes, she would really like to not know what it was. Anyway, since he doesn't trust her, how about setting it to 6 months? Adeline wants them to become knights who will be useful, and he wants to find Alice. So how about we prove our worth to each other for 6 months? Abed muttered that it meant that if in 6 months the girl was not next to him, then they could give up knighthood. Lawton replied that it was true, and vice versa. If their abilities did not change in any way, then he would forget about Alice. The young man thought to himself that if it only concerned him, he would immediately agree. But what about his charges? Unexpectedly, Kosine put his hand on his shoulder and told the chief to agree, because this was the girl he was so desperately looking for. In any case, if it weren't for him, the guys wouldn't be here, so let him agree, because the head's desire is their desire. The guys supported him and said that they could finally give up this dirty life of mercenaries. Knights do cool things, don't they? The young man was deeply moved by this, so he said that his subordinates were the best. Thus, the negotiations with the head of the mercenaries ended rather quickly. His subordinates will sort out their personal affairs within a month. To ensure that they could reach the forest safely, they decided to send someone with them. When the guy heard about the high-speed vessel, he asked how our heroine found out about it. Adeline replied that she had business on Maven Island, and in order to remain unnoticed, they decided to go there, just the 3 of them. Abed first asked if he had the option to refuse her, but then he realized it was useless, so he waved his hand and told her to do as she knew best. The girl thought that everything would go according to her plan, but sitting at the table with the Duke, she could not understand what this was all about again. When Lawton tried to ask where Vacan was, Horace immediately said that he had already eaten his fill. Adeline noted to herself that this was a very awkward situation. Of course, they ate together at home, but they had never had such an atmosphere. The young man remembered the expression on her face when she said that she was very familiar with this feeling and did not understand what it was. Why does he feel from her that she seemed to have endured loneliness for a long time, which was tearing her apart from the inside? Noticing his gaze on her, the girl asked if he wanted to tell her something. The young man replied that nothing like that, after which he put the bag in front of her. Adeline was happy because she thought she had lost it. The guy explained that Kosan took her, apparently thinking he would get some money when he kidnapped her, and the Duke felt the magic. Or our heroine exclaimed that, indeed, she found it in the store, and surprisingly, everything that you can put in it fits in theirs. When Horace replied that, of course, the girl breathed a sigh of relief. because it was a great relief that he hadn't asked about anything important. Then the young man began to look at her again and think about something of his own. Adeline asked why he was looking at her like that again. Whoever saw it would think that Benzark was looking at her because she was beautiful. Unexpectedly, the young man answered that she was reasoning, right? Lawton did not expect such an answer, so she spat out the wine. Then she asked him again what he had just said. Horace replied that he was looking at her because she was beautiful. Her face became so red that the Duchess looked like a peach. Our heroine didn't understand what was happening. Had the young man gone completely crazy or something? The Duke asked what kind of reaction she had. Did she really not like it when people complimented her? The girl replied that it was just too unexpected. She wouldn't say that she didn't like it. She noted to herself that, however, she still had not managed to get rid of the past. Beyond his present, Adeline can see his past self, who turned away from her. If she begins to feel even the slightest affection for him, then this miserable past begins to haunt her. The voice whispers to her, does she really want to get hurt again? Does she really believe that he loves her? Unfortunately, in the past, whenever he tried to do something for her, she felt both happy and uncomfortable at the same time, after which she replied that he really keeps his promises, even calls her sweet. They look like a real couple. The young man replied that it was because she was his wife. Lawton countered that she was pretending to be her for their mutual benefit, after which she apologized, stood up, and said that she had lost her appetite. So would he mind if she left first? Horace grabbed her hand to stop her and said that it was she who called him her husband, and he liked to hear that from her. But the girl still broke free from his hands, wished him bon appetit, and left. The young man sighed heavily and noted to himself that he just wanted to see her smile one more time. He didn't need anything else. It's funny to even think about it, but he really is trying to win her favor. The emotion he felt at first irritated him. It was enough for him to just watch her smile. But for some reason, why does it seem to him that something is wrong? Everything is too complicated. After some time, the guy found himself in the mansion of Count Lawton, and the man told him that he was welcome back. The young man was sure that he fell asleep after dinner. But how did he end up here? It was very strange, but the Duke couldn't even move from his place. Maybe it was Aker's doing. The Count said that he did not want to show her to Benzark, as she was behaving inappropriately. The young man noted that it was on this day that he met Adeline. What is going on? It's so annoying. How the Duke ended up here simply cannot be. It turns out that this is a dream. But Dev doesn't sleep, so it's a prophecy or something. But calling it a prophecy is somehow strange. It feels like he's seeing the past, not the future. Meanwhile, his past self was thinking about what he was doing, as Aster said. But did he really need to marry her? They could have just caught her and locked her up. Why did they have to do all this? The real Horace was angry with himself. Did he really think that way? It seems now it is clear why Adeline builds walls between them. How unpleasant. Suddenly, it was announced that Mrs. Lawton had arrived. Benzark noted to himself that he could never forget this day, because it was the first time he saw her. The father angrily asked why she was silent, and that she should immediately greet the Duke. Stuttering, our heroine replied that her name was Adeline Lawton. Nice to meet you. The young man wondered to himself if she had really been like this when they first met, but definitely not. She was more confident. Her eyes looked proudly into his. But why is Adeline like this in her memories? The young man clearly remembers this moment. When he came past her, the girl asked him to accompany her, but at the moment this did not happen. Our heroine only looked after him sadly. Aster said that he told me that she was not interested at all because she was weak-willed. Benzark responded that as long as they do their job properly, it doesn't matter. Leffa said that, of course. But could it be of any use? The guy objected that, in fact, he was one of those who so actively promoted the idea of marriage. After which he added that if it turns out to be useless, then you can always just return it back here. Then the real young man looked at Adeline, and the girl quietly cried bitterly. When Lawton passed out, Aster said that he believed that teleportation was hard enough for a normal person to handle. It was problematic, since they were going to be moving around a lot in the future. Horace thought to himself that he was sure that Adele was perfectly fine after the teleportation. But why was she like this in this dream? The Duke from the past thought that this girl was very beautiful. The real one didn't understand what it was, whether their emotions were synchronized or he was going crazy. But you can't argue with the fact that she is beautiful. When the girl came to her senses and saw that she was in his arms, she immediately and sharply pulled away from him. The young man did not understand what was wrong. Did she really hate his touch? Did he need to be more careful? The young man noted that he seemed to be dissatisfied for a similar reason. When our heroine asked where they were, the guy explained that it was the Forest of Darkness. Looking around and seeing this eerie atmosphere around, Adeline involuntarily screamed. The young man said that whether she liked it or not, from now on she would have to live here, so it was better to get used to it quickly. Our heroine immediately came to her senses and asked for forgiveness from Duke Benzark. The young man said that it was time to move on, but he noted to himself that he did not understand what he should talk to her about, because he had never talked to women before. After which he addressed her as, "Hey," and declared that from that day on her name is Adeline Benzark. The girl must become a useful duchess. Our heroine dejectedly replied that, okay, she would try her best. The real Horace looked at her sad expression and thought that she must hate him. When the young man came to, he could not understand what it was. A dream or something else. This is all very strange. He never dreamed in the mansion, so why did he dream of it here? They say that human dreams are a manifestation of unconscious desire. Does that mean that Adeline's appearance is his unconscious desire? The young man doubts, because he never wanted Lotan to exude melancholy. In his dream, she looked like a submissive person, whom anyone could call weak and depressed, just like Astor described her before their wedding. His Adeline never created such an impression, so it's all very strange. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking about what she should do now. Because she left too suddenly, it must have been unpleasant for him. Even if Horace has changed a lot from his past self, he is most likely disappointed now. Are the events of the past really repeating themselves? But it's okay, she just needs to apologize. The girl is afraid of falling in love again, but she also doesn't want to feel awkward around him. When she approached him, the guy stated that Adeline had woken up and added that he just had a question for her. Noticing the huge bruises under his eyes, the girl asked if something had happened or what. The young man replied that not really. He was interested in whether she had ever seen dreams. Our heroine was surprised by such a question and asked if there was anyone who did not see them. Then she remembered that, unlike the seers, Dev does not dream anything. But why is he asking? Benzark said he wondered if she had dreamed anything last night. Adele replied that she definitely didn't remember. In fact, she didn't remember any dreams at all in a while. It's just that after waking up, dreams are almost immediately forgotten. Was she really talking in her sleep? The young man replied that no. He was just curious to know about things called dreams. He noted to himself that it didn't seem like anything unusual had happened to Lawton. So did that mean he was the only Dev who had the dream? The girl then said that she wanted to apologize for yesterday because she thought that leaving like that was a mistake. But the young man immediately interrupted her and said that there was no need to apologize to him, after which he added that he didn't need her apology, which shocked our heroine. To himself, he thought that he was continuing to remember Adeline from his dream. Lawton muttered dejectedly that it was clear she had crossed the line again, but she noted to herself what else she expected from him, because he was always like this, after which she added that it was time to eat, so they needed to go down. Vakan was probably already waiting for them. The young man wondered to himself why she looked as sad as she did in his dream. Vin exclaimed that eating outside is just great. The only reason he goes on missions outside is for the food. Adeline said that of course the food in the duchy isn't that good. So he kept going on missions, right? The guy asked. Not to talk about it, please, Astor. The girl jokingly replied that she would think about it and added that she would go get a drink. The young man exclaimed for her to come back quickly. When she left, Vacan immediately asked what happened. Did the captain really quarrel with her? He had deliberately left them alone yesterday so that they could have dinner together. Horace generally understands that today they did not even talk to each other. The young man grabbed his head and replied that he was also having a hard time, so he should keep quiet. Vin thought to himself that Leffa kept telling him to disappear so that the two could be alone. Suddenly, the Duke asked if he had ever seen dreams. The young man answered in confusion that he never had. Why was Benzark asking about such obvious things? When the captain asked him that he was also an Astor, the young man asked why he should suddenly know about this. Despite the content, if one of them had dreamed something, he would have immediately found out about it. But why does he ask if he really dreamed something? Horace replied that no, he was just wondering if it was possible to have a dream that wasn't a vision. Vacan muttered that he was thinking about some strange things. The guy lived for over 100 years before entering Nirvana, but never heard of devs who see dreams. If this happens, word will spread quickly because it is extremely unusual, although perhaps the person would be ashamed of it. The young man had heard that dreams help people protect their weak psyche. Apparently, it is something like a hypnotic state, caused by the subject on his own initiative. The Duke was taken aback. Did he really see a dream that devs should not see in order to protect their psyche? Adeline suddenly appeared and asked if the gentlemen had finished their meal. If so, then it's time to move on, because they are going to earn money at the gladiator tournament. Therefore, she must know how much money they have with them at the moment. The boys reported 10 gold pieces, 50 silver pieces, and about 655 talents. Our heroine stated that this was just great, so let them give it all to her. Looking at the hierarchy board, the girl said that the only one they should pay attention to was the great thief of the underworld. The young man should also know who it is, right? Vacan replied that he was sure that everyone knew, because he always won gladiatorial fights, which is why many would bet on the victory of the great thief of the underworld. Adeline replied that yes, and there would be many people here who, like her, would only bet on him. The question then becomes how they can win all the money that people will bet on the great thief of the underworld. Vin muttered that he would have to bet on his opponent, and the great thief would have to miraculously lose. Lawton noted that this was the correct answer. In the final, she would put absolutely all her money on his opponent. As for the result, the guys would see everything for themselves. After some time, the guy did not understand who she was at all, and why he would bet so much money on such a piece of trash. Asked if the young man was sure that they had personally put the seal on it, he replied that absolutely. There was no reason for them to refuse if she wanted to spend all her money like that. The man replied that, indeed, what difference did it make? And then asked how the great thief of the underworld was doing. When the interlocutor replied that he had reached the semi-finals without a single scratch, the young man asked about the wolf's fang that she had bet on. The young man replied that he looked like a beaten dog, and that the fact that he had reached the final was pure chance. He watched him closely, as he was curious about what kind of person he was that she would bet such a large sum on him, but he was completely unworthy of attention. After some time, the hour of the final battle came, and everyone welcomed the great thief of the underworld. After the fight, our heroine reported that there were 2,000 gold coins here, which she won today on bets. Vacan was very surprised, because he was sure that there would only be 10 gold coins and 50 silver coins with kopecks. He noted to himself that 1 gold coin is enough for 2 commoners to live their entire lives. The girl said that they could leave. There was no reason to linger here, because they had already achieved their goal. Suddenly, a male voice was heard, asking to wait a minute, then asking if she was Adeline Lawton. Our heroine noted to herself that he had a suspicious look. Judging by the guards accompanying this elderly man, he was clearly the owner of the arena, after which she replied that, yes, that was her name, and who her interlocutor was. The man said that he heard that she had pulled off an interesting adventure today. Our heroine asked if the rumors had already started spreading. The owner of the arena said that she won in a completely different way from others. What trick did she use? The girl noted that it sounds like she cheated. She did not expect that such a small amount would be accompanied by an investigation. The interlocutor retorted that it looked as if she really had cheated, so an investigation was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, the game wouldn't be fun. Our heroine stated that such fun would amuse only him. He was silent when the arena won all the money that the spectators lost, and now he rushed to it surprised, because this time everything did not go according to plan. He does not think that it is a little mean. One of the guards yelled at her, "What did she just say? How dare she say something like that to their master?" Vacan and Horace immediately grabbed their swords and hissed that he had better behave himself, otherwise his head would part with his body if he made even one unnecessary movement. The older man noted to himself that he clearly shouldn't act too hastily, after which it dawned on him that this was the Duke of Darkness. Could this girl really be his wife? Why did he of all people get caught? After which he asked them to calm down, because he didn't come here to fight. He, as the owner of the arena, was simply doing his job. If he had known that the Duke would be here, he would have prepared a proper reception, so he apologizes for not recognizing Benzark. When the captain replied that he didn't think he was the only one the man should have recognized, the old man replied that he had hearing problems and so didn't understand everything very well. Horace explained that it was not him, but his wife. She was the victim of his disrespectful behavior. He should behave appropriately with her. The owner of the arena noted to himself that the Duke was an influential person, so he couldn't screw up. Otherwise, he could easily eliminate him. After which he said that he was blinded by his stupidity and did not recognize the lady. Let him please allow her to greet her once more. His name is Peter. He is the head of the city of Makran. Let her not hesitate to contact him for anything she needs. Meanwhile, Abid was indignant. Did the great thief of the underworld really lose? He had bet on him, and now his money was gone. Kosin replied that yes, the money was gone quickly. They say he made a stupid mistake during the final. The guy snorted that the old man must have earned a lot. He should have worked at the arena instead of becoming a mercenary. But the assistant told him that he heard that the one who won the money was not an arena employee. It was Adeline Latin. Abid was so frozen with surprise that even the beer began to flow out of his mouth. Kosin explained that in the first 3 matches, she bet on the great thief of the underworld. And in the final round on the Wolf's Fang, Abid asked how she knew that he would reach the final. The guy replied that he did not know. The guy noted that he knew that she couldn't be an ordinary person. But it was amazing anyway. How could a Wolf's Fang win? The interlocutor replied that it was not that, but that the great thief of the underworld made a mistake. It seemed he stumbled when the swords clashed. The chief replied that it was all strange. The one she bet on won thanks to the great thief's mistake. Then the young man had an idea, and he said to find that man and invite him to be his mercenary. Meanwhile, Adele reported that she had reimbursed all the money she had spent on the castle's furnishings. When asked if this was really all for this, the girl replied that it was to some extent, since she needed her own money to live comfortably. Horace retorted that the duchy had plenty of money. The pile of gold coins, meldals, and all sorts of jewels was proof of that. He hoped she didn't think they had no funds. The girl replied that she knew that in the lands of darkness, there was a mine where minerals were stored in large quantities. Did it really bother him that she, the mistress of the house, knew nothing about her own lands? After which, our heroine added that it was simply his money, not hers. Benzark thought to himself that there should be no division between you and me. Then the young man began to say what was between them, but then he caught himself and fell silent. And Adeline asked again what was between them, but the young man didn't have time to answer, as Vacan yelled for Abid to come here to them. The mercenary asked in surprise what they were doing here. Had the rumors really reached them too? He didn't think they would be interested. They had already earned a lot. When he reported that 5 orcs had emerged from the forest, our heroine noted to herself that she remembered that Eagle's mercenaries had suffered great losses in the situation in the past. Then she said that she had heard that 4 or 5 armed knights would hardly be able to defeat even 1 orc. Abid replied that yes, that is true, but that is how money is made, even if it is indeed difficult to beat. Kosin's voice was heard, saying that they needed to hurry, otherwise the other mercenaries would catch them before they did. Adeline immediately said that they would go with them, but the Duke stopped her and said that it was dangerous. Orcs were monsters that received power from the Demon Queen. The girl replied that she knew, but they were too strong for mercenaries. Horace objected that no matter what happened to them, she didn't need to worry about it. Vacan immediately intervened and said that the captain simply wanted to say that it was very dangerous there, so it was better to leave it to the mercenaries and go to a safe place. Orcs usually act alone, but now they have gathered in a group of 5 individuals. Isn't that strange? The captain noted that this meant that the Demon Queen would soon wake up. Havin immediately said that this was a complicated matter because they did not have much holy water to pacify these monsters. If this continues, a large number of people may suffer. The Duke said that this city is now dangerous, so it is necessary to leave, but first return to the hotel. Our heroine exclaimed that, "No! They can't just leave them like that. They need help." The young man grabbed her by the shoulders and replied that no. He said that they needed to leave it to the mercenaries. Lawton asked why he was stopping her. If the point was that the Demon Queen was waking up, then that was exactly what they needed to know about. But the young man interrupted her and said, "Because she might be in danger." Adeline muttered that, of course, the seer could suffer, but they still needed her. The guy was indignant that she was getting into trouble with her seer. Let her stop right now. He was just worried about her. Hearing this, the girl was very surprised. Was he really worried about her? Our heroine always thought that he was worried about her because she was a seer. So when the young man added that he didn't want to see her put herself in danger, the girl asked why. The young man blushed and replied, "Because she is his wife." Adeline couldn't understand whether she had heard it or not, whether he really said that. Meanwhile, Vacan watched this touching picture and thought to himself, what a pleasant sight it was. After which he said that the two of them could return to the inn and he would go fight the orcs. Since Lawton had awakened the holy sword, he would kill them with one blow. Upon hearing about this sword, our heroine immediately told him that there was no need to use it. She thought to herself that Hela might notice this. If she used her powers to find them, it would be revealed that Adeline was not a seer. After which she said that Horus used his powers to find her. If he uses the holy sword, then Akur can also find out his location. When Vin replied that fine, then there wouldn't be any, and headed towards the orcs, Lawton wanted to go with him, but the Duke stopped her. The girl was indignant. Did he really want to send him alone? Horus objected that he was strong. Our heroine reminded him that he could not use the holy sword, but the young man objected again that he was strong without it. Then he asked if she was offended, why she had such an expression on her face. Our heroine answered that no, he just grabbed her too unexpectedly. She noted to herself that despite the fact that he killed her, she loved him so much that she was able to convince herself that he had a good reason for doing so. More precisely, the girl still loves him. She repeats her own mistakes, steps on the same rake. If he behaved the same way as in the past, then now it would not be so hard for her to cope with it. But now he treats her completely differently. Therefore, when our heroine begins to remember the past, she feels unbearable pain. Her actions changed the current Duke, but she still can't overcome her feelings for him, because Adeline is an ordinary person. Human life is short and therefore filled with bright events. That is why people want to spend this short time with deep passion. Dev and Akur do not understand how strong these emotions are. Will there come a day when she can describe the feeling she gets when she looks at him? Not as stupid, but passionate and strong. After which she said that she is worried that Vakan will get hurt. The young man replied that there was no need to worry. They couldn't go together anyway because he was weak. The guy won't be able to fight while he's worried about her, because Adeline is his weakness. Meanwhile, Havin told Kokin not to touch anything here, and he replied, confused, "That was fine." I thought to myself, how could I even dare to contradict a person with such an expression on his face? The young man looked at Vacan with admiration, because this was exactly what he wanted. His thirst to take all the resources down to the last drop of orc blood is simply admirable. This is a real example for other mercenaries to follow, Cocoon objected. Is he just a strong man to me? Abed said that it was actually amazing, since he defeated the orc with one swing of his sword. A little earlier, a loud roar of an orc was heard, and Vacan commanded everyone to step aside, after which the young man dealt with this huge monster in literally 1 instant. The plan to make money failed, so it was necessary to quickly decide what to do, if not for Vin. Then the mercenary course might have come to an end. Adeline's voice was heard, stating that it seemed that no one was seriously injured. The guy wondered if the two of them hadn't gone to the hotel. The girl replied that she wanted to join because she needed something from the orc's corpse, and the Duke said that he would only let her go after Vacan took care of everything. She only needs 1 orc heart. They can take the rest for themselves. Abud immediately exclaimed, "Are they serious?" It is clear whether she will go back on her words. It will be too late to change her mind. The girl asked if Vian was against it. The guy replied that it didn't matter, because he was going to leave it all to the two of them anyway. Then our heroine asked if the head of the mercenaries would be able to take care of what she had said earlier. The young man asked if she meant the orc's heart. Of course, he would give her the largest one. Adeline remembered that she still needed the orc's blood, so let him bring it to her when he left the forest. Cosine noted that the other mercenaries must have had their stomachs twisted with envy long ago. Abid replied that that was true, so you need to choose the right people to serve. A little later, looking at the sleeping Loten, the Duke could not understand what this feeling was. Emotions that he had never experienced in his life. When he sees her, his heart starts beating and fluttering quickly, and the guy is very worried about her. What breaks his heart the most is that she looks at him as if he is somewhere far away. Perhaps the young man really was crazy. But then he realized that he was very tired and decided to lie down next to her for a while. Suddenly, he began to have another dream in which Maven asked if he planned to give the lady the quarters next to Vacan's room. Horace wondered why the room was right next to this guy. It was strange, because now she lives with him. Does that mean that in that other past, Adeline lived next door to Havin? She couldn't just agree. When asked if there was anything she was unhappy with, the butler replied that it was not so. Everything seemed to be in order. The Duke said that there was no need for that then, but he noted to himself that she might become frightened if she lived next to him, after which he added that she could change the room if she wanted. But if she didn't want to, then it wasn't necessary. The young man replied that he understood everything, so let him deviate. Benzark thought to himself that he didn't know how he should treat her, what he could do to make her not be so afraid of him. Horace can't get the image of her, looking like she's about to burst into tears, out of his head. He just can't concentrate on anything else. The real Duke noted that he thought only about her all day long, and that, both in his dreams and in reality, the captain was head over heels in love with her. Aster said that more than half a year has passed since she arrived. Has there really been no prophecies until now? Is this woman a real prophet at all? The young man thought to himself, how dare he call her that woman? He would really like to hit him on the back of the head if it were possible. Leffa continued that a few months ago, some orcs attacked the Macron Corporation. There are more and more witches. He thinks it's time for the Demon Queen to wake up. They can no longer sit idly by. Otherwise, the kingdom of heaven may indeed collapse. Suddenly, the space changed dramatically, and the real Duke couldn't understand what happened. Maybe it was because he was inside a dream. Horace from the past came to the window and said that he missed her, but he couldn't understand who he wanted to see in the present. 946. Then it dawned on the young man that downstairs seemed to be Adeline's room. When the young man suddenly jumped down onto her balcony, Benzark was indignant. What was he doing at all? Was he really visiting her like this, instead of entering the door normally? This man is really weird. He doesn't even knock on her door. Lawton must be really angry. But the girl told him that she was welcome, and the guy asked if she had learned anything today. But she replied that she had learned nothing at all, and that she was sorry. The young man thought to himself that he had come to see her, but she again lowered her head. The real Duke was upset by this whole situation. Couldn't he honestly say that he missed her? True, Horace can't say this either. This guy is struggling with unknown feelings, just like him. The inability to convey what one wants to say is very painful. And yet, if one speaks honestly, one can look into those clear eyes again and again. Meanwhile, the young man was about to leave, but remembered that he wanted to ask her when she proposed marriage and why she did not reject it. Our heroine replied that she had always been isolated from the outside world. Due to the stigma of being an illegitimate child of the Lawton family, the girl was always alone. The only way out of this situation was marriage. That's why she was looking forward to it so much. She always wanted to leave that place and explore the big world. The young man coldly replied that it was understandable and simply began to leave. Already outside the door, Horace thought to himself that she wanted to explore the big world. Then he should take her to different places. When the guy came to, he couldn't understand what had just happened again, why he kept having such dreams. Benzark is very concerned that they will consume his true reality. In this dream, she still seems to hate him. A guy like that was such a fool. The girl would have raised her head if he had simply said that he wanted to see her eyes, but that Horace could not say a word. If you think about it, Adeline was always the first. She was the first to look him in the eye, and even called him by name. If she hadn't approached him first, then now it could have been the same as in the dream. Suddenly, our heroine woke up and asked what he was doing here since early morning. The young man looked her straight in the eyes and replied that he missed her. When asked in surprise what he had just said, the guy explained that he had come because he wanted to see her. Our heroine exclaimed that this was not true. Horace, the Benzark she knows, would never say he missed her. The Duke noted to himself that, judging by her reaction, it was better not to say that he had been here since yesterday. Then he began to involuntarily examine the girl, her beautiful lips, the beautiful curls that fell below her shoulders. Then the young man came to the conclusion that this was very dangerous, so he needed to leave this room right now. Adeline asked if it was really Horace, or if she was dreaming, and the guy replied that it was definitely him. Our heroine asked where he ran so quickly, The young man answered that he was going to his room, after which he added that she should sleep a little more and left. But the girl did not understand what had just happened. It's all strange. There must be some other reason, maybe. Like then, he came to see whether she was a true prophet or not. When she woke up and he said he wanted to see her, it was probably just an excuse. Yes, that's right. It can't be that Horus told her that without any reason. Now that she thought about it, she hadn't had any dreams after awakening the holy sword in her previous life. She had always wanted to escape from reality. Since there are no more dreams, doesn't it mean that everything is working out for her and everything is fine now? After some time, the Duke suddenly announced that today she would be sharing a room with Vasyan. Adeline asked again what he had just said. Then she began to worry about why he said that. Maybe she said something in her sleep. The young man immediately asked why she looked like that. It seemed to him that the girl was upset. Lawton replied that this was true. She was worried that she might have offended him by telling her to use another room. The guy replied that he just needed to check something. He was in no way angry with her, and would never be angry no matter what happened, because it was her. Finn was taken aback by what he had just seen and heard. Had his boss really gone crazy? Our heroine thought to herself that this man definitely couldn't be Horus. Maybe Aker had secretly replaced him. The young man felt extremely awkward, so he said that he would probably go first and let them continue. Adeline grabbed him by the cloak and cried out that he should please not go anywhere. Then she whispered to him if he thought the captain had become strange, and the guy said that he had noticed it too. It's possible that Aker used magic on him. Vaken countered that something like that shouldn't work on the boss. Horus stood up and said that he would go first. After all, he needed to do some things. That same evening, he thought that he had never had dreams before. But when he began to share a room with Adele, he saw a dream for the first time. Perhaps living in the same room is a condition of this strange dream. After some time, Haveen said that this one suits her better. The girl replied that this one also seems to be okay, but a bit heavy, after which they announced that they would take this sword. The seller exclaimed that the dear customers had excellent taste. Horus noted to himself that, as expected, he had dreams every time he slept in the same room with Adele. But the reason for this is completely incomprehensible to him. Perhaps it is because Lawton is a prophet. Unexpectedly, the man said that he would then give them separate rooms. The Duke turned to Adeline and asked if they weren't using one room for two. The girl replied that they did this only in the city of Mokran. That is because there was no other choice. But here it is not necessary, especially since there are so many free places. Isn't it more convenient for everyone to have a separate room? Horus said that there was no need to think anything unnecessary. Yesterday was only because he needed to make sure of something, but it was not important. Our heroine asked for forgiveness for not telling him earlier, but she also needed it this time. He wouldn't want to look first, and she would do some things in the room and immediately return. The young man turned to Vaken and told him to go get the luggage, but the guy was not there. He was already in tourist clothes and asked for forgiveness. Because there were so many interesting things to see around, he heard that there was even a bathhouse here. The Duke hissed that he really thought he was here to have fun. After some time, Adeline thought that they finally went to Mavane Island, because they must destroy the siren at any cost. The girl will never let the butler die in this life. An image immediately popped into her head of Vakan, asking him again what he had just said. Aster replied that he was struck by the siren song. When he heard Maven scream, he woke up and immediately ran to help. Veen shouted that they had taken care of the medicines. Why did this happen then? Leffa replied that it wasn't enough. Perhaps Riley could have healed him if she had been there, but they couldn't save him with just holy power. The young man screamed that this was some kind of nonsense. It couldn't be that he died so easily. Then he turned to our heroine and exclaimed that she was a prophet. Let her find Riley immediately, if she was a real soothsayer. This girl was said to be a maiden born with great healing powers that allowed her to use almost any type of healing magic, even without the Tree of Life. Adeline must find her in this life. But first of all, she doesn't know where she is now. They must get to the time when the sirens are in hibernation. Then Aster said that in his past life, while passing through the island, he met a siren who woke up. The probability that she would accidentally wake up like last time is extremely small, because there is a time difference between their journey in Leffe with Maven. This means that they must make the sirens wake up. They said that they met her around the third day of the journey on the fast ship. This means that the supposed location is somewhere around here, but there are too many uninhabited islands and rocks there. The guys also have no idea on which island the siren is located, and they can't search for it for long because the fuel on the magic stones will quickly run out. So our heroine wondered whether she should inform the captain about this in advance. When the ship's leader heard about this, he was completely stunned, so he asked again if she was really going to find the sirens. The girl replied that yes, in 4 days. The man immediately exclaimed that this was complete madness, but Vaken said that even if the emperor forbade her, she would still do what she wanted. The captain had no choice but to say that he understood everything and would go get ready. Ven asked why she needed an orc last time and a siren this time. The guy, of course, will not doubt her plans. But what is their plan? Because the sirens are stronger than the orcs, so it will be more difficult to defeat them. Their skin is thicker than that of the thugs, and their song is especially dangerous, as it causes hallucinations. The crew of this ship are ordinary people, so they will not be able to avoid losses, of course. They and the boss will protect Adeline first and foremost. The girl pointed to the table and said that she also had a secret weapon, the heart of an orc. She plans to make a powerful bomb out of it. Its power is enough to easily destroy a demonic beast like the siren. 1029. The guy exclaimed that now it was clear why she was only interested in the heart. Lawton added that the siren's skin is too thick and will be difficult to remove, which is why it is necessary to put a bomb inside. But they will discuss all the details later with Horace. She noted to herself that in this regard, she would need to use magic without Vakan and Benzark knowing. But it would be difficult to remain unnoticed, after which she said that she wanted to drink. Did he have anything? The young man answered that he had liqueur. Would she like some of it? When our heroine thoughtfully said that she had never drunk it, Finn said that he would immediately bring her this delicacy. Our heroine thought to herself that this was wonderful, but first she would just like some water. So I decided to drink what the young man had drunk before ye. Meanwhile, the young man said that this liqueur was very popular among all women, but then he accidentally saw how she dried the entire mug and reported that it was very strong alcohol. When the girl immediately started getting drunk, Vaken came to the conclusion that the boss would finish him off. After some time, the Duke asked if he wanted to say that she was in such a state because she had drunk strong alcohol by mistake. The guy replied that it was true. He didn't even have time to stop her, since everything happened too quickly. Moreover, the guy didn't think that she would get drunk so quickly. Our heroine started saying something unintelligible, like Vaken saying that this is her boyfriend. Isn't it funny? Her boyfriend is her husband. Catching the captain's withering gaze, Vin immediately exclaimed in mock exclamation that his stomach was twisting and that he needed to run. Suddenly, our heroine said that she could hardly stand on her feet. Could he please carry her to her room? Without thinking twice, the young man took her in his arms and replied, "Okay." On the way, the young man said that she gets drunk very quickly, and it is not safe. The girl replied that everything is fine. He came to look for her anyway. This is simply amazing. Adeline could not even imagine this in her past life. This time she really feels like they are a real couple. Horace noted to himself how drunk she was, that she was talking nonsense about a past life, after which he replied that they not only looked like a couple, but were actually spouses. As she fell asleep, our heroine replied that, indeed, she really felt better after these words. Having put her to bed, the Duke thought to himself that she was sleeping so peacefully, not even suspecting his worries. If the guy stays here now and falls asleep, he might see something similar to that dream. Well, really, if he sits down for just a minute, Adeline won't wake up in that time. In his dream, he saw a red-haired girl who said that she had arrived to see His Highness Duke Benzark. Here is the one who will give him a bright future, and her name is Hela Alton. The next morning, our heroine woke up and couldn't understand why her head was splitting so much and how she ended up in bed. The girl is sure that she just talked to Vaken and drank water from a mug, after which it dawned on her that she had drunk alcohol from the table and had gotten very drunk. It seemed that Adeline had done something to Horace, but she couldn't remember what. What should she do now? What if she made some mistake? She needs to go and ask him. But then she noticed that he was sitting next to her bed. The girl didn't understand why he was here, why he wasn't in his room. Was this some kind of rebellion about having a separate bedroom? It turns out that the young man took her to bed. This does not mean that she does not understand the whole situation, but he is so handsome. After which she said that, When he called her name only once in the past, strangely enough, she did not forget his voice then, although she does not even remember in what situation it happened. His voice was so gentle, she wants to know why he called her that. As when our heroine began to reach her hand to his face, the guy suddenly opened his eyes. Our heroine suddenly jumped back and wondered since when he didn't sleep at all. But the young man silently grabbed her hand and pulled her closer to him. Adeline immediately pushed him away from her and exclaimed that she didn't expect him to wake up so suddenly. Why was he sleeping on the floor at all? The Duke immediately decided to ask if she knew anything about a girl named Hella Alton. Our heroine replied that she was hearing this name for the first time, which surprised the young man very much, after which she stood up abruptly and said that she urgently needed to drink water. She felt very sick to her stomach. Could he bring some for her? It would be better if she was cold. The young man replied that, okay, he would now bring what she needed. Adeline didn't understand how he knew about her, how much he knew, and how he even knew about it. She remembers that their meeting is supposed to happen in the future, but not now. Whether this is because Lawton changed the course of history, Horace can now begin his investigation as soon as he returns to the Duke's mansion. As a result, as before, Hella will arrive at the mansion because she is a real prophet. Because of this, Benzark will be disappointed in her. Will everything really be like before? When he looked at her with such a cold gaze, our heroine couldn't even breathe. She was numb because her previous memories were overwhelming her. Adeline thought she had finally gotten closer to him, but if things went back to the way they were in the past, it would just kill her. The girl tried her best to live differently than in her past life, but probably everything was predetermined from the very beginning. Meanwhile, the Duke thought to himself that she was lying. As soon as he mentioned this name, our heroine began to avoid any eye contact. Horace has a strong feeling that she is hiding something. And what kind of dream was that anyway? The girl said that her name was Hella Alton. She only has one desired future, which is the restoration of the heavenly kingdom. I wonder if she even knew what she was talking about. If Hella really exists, does that mean that the dream was actually true? Even though it wasn't a prophecy or a real event, it felt like reality to him, like another version of reality. Bring the captain, Vacan asked if he had come here to have lunch. Benzark said he came because Adeline asked him to bring her some water. Fiend replied that he didn't know he had such a side. Since he was already here, he should take something with him. The chef had prepared excellent dishes. He wanted to lure him to the Duke's mansion. The young man ignored this and asked if he had ever lied before. Vacan asked if he wanted him to answer such a sudden question. He lied many times, for example, when he wanted to avoid an awkward situation or hide something from a person. A young man also lies when he wants to get out of an unpleasant situation. For example, he says that he is sick when he wants to simulate illness in order to avoid studying, training, or work. Why did the captain even decide to ask about this? Whether it was somehow connected with Adeline? Let him stop worrying about it and just try talking to her again. When Horace objected that it was not what he thought, the guy said that of course not. But while the water was still warm, let him return to it, and Vacan finish eating everything in the meantime. As he pushed him out the door, the Duke noted to himself that this guy had gotten completely out of hand lately. Perhaps he had been too kind to him. What should he even ask her? He thought that hiding emotions was easy as pie, and she is like an open book, but he would prefer not to interrogate her. There must be a reason why the girl lied. The young man does not want her to turn into Adele, whom he saw in a dream. Therefore, it is simply necessary to give her time. Someday the moment will come when she will decide and tell him everything. Meanwhile, our heroine couldn't get the fact that Horace knew Hella out of her head. It seemed as if something had broken. She doesn't know where or how they met before. Whether because she never heard anything about it, or because the memories of that situation have simply disappeared. Now that the Duke has learned about her, he will soon find out her whereabouts. And then what will happen to her? Will she be locked in the dark tower like in her past life? Although the punishment may be even worse than then, because she lied to him. The girl pretended to be a prophet, lying about the existence of the present. Maybe now everyone in the duchy will despise her. Horace can't be on her side. This is all beyond imagination. It all needs to stop. But how? At this time, the Duke returned and asked if she was okay. Our heroine replied that yes, he should apologize for disturbing her. After she drank the water, the boys simultaneously called each other by name. The young man immediately said that she didn't want to say anything special, so let her speak first. Our heroine replied that, okay, maybe he had already heard it from Vakan or the captain, but there were sirens on the way to Maven Island. The girl plans to pacify the sleeping sirens after they wake up. When asked why, Adeline replied that for now she can only say that it is to prevent accidents. The guy replied that he would ask the question, without going into details, whether it was because of the prophecy. When she simply looked at him silently, the Duke said that he understood everything. Lauder was surprised that he agreed faster than she thought. Maybe it was because of his promise to do whatever she said. Without thinking twice, the young man answered briefly, yes. Adeline wondered if he knew who she really was. Would he treat her as well? Or if he no longer believed her? Suddenly, he was tired of listening to all her demands. Her thoughts were interrupted by the Duke's voice, who said that Vakan was inviting her to dinner. It was impressive how obsessed he was with food. The girl replied that if they continued digging, he would eat all the food, so they needed to go to dinner quickly, and they would go to the sirens in about 3 days. Already standing in front of the door, our heroine turned to him and suddenly asked if she was of any use to him now. The young man exclaimed, why did she suddenly decide to ask this? Adeline answered that nothing. She just wanted to know, let the young man forgive her for all these senseless questions. She will go down first. The young man immediately thought that her facial expression had just been exactly the same as that Adele's in the dream. A few days later, the boys periodically dived underwater. From the ship, our heroine asked if they had found anything, but they replied that there was nothing special. The girl noted to herself that she expected to be confronted with the problem of finding the place where the sirens were hiding. Since they hide in reefs or crevices in the rocks, finding them is even more difficult, as there are many obstacles along the way. Suddenly, the captain of the ship approached her and said that the magic stones were running out and they could no longer remain at sea. He understands everything, but he can't do anything about it. If there is no success in the search tomorrow, they will go to Maven Island. That same night, our heroine walked through the cabins and made sure that everyone was already asleep. She didn't want to use this method because it was dangerous, but now she had to use all possible means. Horus taught her how to search for magic in the past, but it was very difficult, and she did not dare to use it. But at the moment, our heroine is confident that she can handle it perfectly. After which, Adeline went out onto the open deck and got down to business, having first concentrated. This caused Vakan to suddenly wake up, having just sensed that something was wrong, or perhaps it was a dream. Since the young man didn't fully understand anything, he decided to just continue sleeping. Lawton was happy that she had succeeded. She was very excited, because she really had succeeded. The feeling was amazing, like a surge of strength. As soon as she thought about the sirens, the air and the sky immediately separated, and she felt their breath. Come to think of it, the Duke had spoken about this before. The guy had told her that she would never use this magic. But it wasn't that she couldn't. It was that there was simply no point in doing it. If you think about it, it's really hard to imagine how she managed to do it. But it doesn't matter. The main thing is that everything worked out. The girl is so happy, but tomorrow she will have to make the guys suffer. If you think about it, they will probably ask her how she found out. Should she just laugh stupidly? Or maybe come up with some plausible story? The young man, who became an unwitting witness to all this, was perplexed as to how Adele was able to use search magic, which is not available to everyone. The one the girl used might not have been her. Most likely he just didn't get it right. The next day, Vakan exclaimed, did she really find the location of the sirens? The girl replied that, yes, they sleep under this island. The guy scratched his head and asked how she found out about it. Our heroine replied that she simply found out, and the young man did not question her further, only asked how they could wake up the sleeping sirens. Adeline replied that she didn't know for sure, after which they both looked at the Duke, who asked in surprise why they were looking at him like that. When the boys said that they just thought that since he was the leader, he must know something, Horus apologized and said that he couldn't remember everything. Havin grinned and said that sometimes he felt like the captain knew less than he did. Suddenly, our heroine exclaimed that she remembered, they will destroy the house of the sirens. The guys are going to blow up the whole island, because she just finished the bomb from the orc's heart. If everything around explodes, then they certainly won't be able to continue sleeping peacefully. When she handed the bomb to Vakan, he said he still can't get used to this side of Adele that comes out from time to time. In any case, he will be back soon. The captain is worried about his wife and will not leave her alone. Right? Horace replied that, yes, if something does not happen according to plan, then he will leave him and go to the island of Mavin. The young man answered sarcastically that he was very scared. But okay, then he would go, and they could rest here without him for now. The young man then went straight to the deck and immediately jumped into the water. At depth, the guy noticed that it was much darker around than he thought, and he couldn't see anything at all. It's a little awkward to use holy power around demons, but it can't be helped for now. The search did not last long, as he saw huge tentacles right in front of him and realized that he had arrived at the right place. This creature is really that huge, so we need to hurry before it wakes up. It's better to leave the bomb here. Then the young man decided that it was now time to rise to the surface and prepare for battle. Suddenly, Vacan felt someone's presence, so he turned back and saw that the siren had woken up earlier than he expected. The monster immediately began to envelop the guy with its tentacles, and in the meantime, he was thinking how this happened. Maybe it felt him because he tried so hard. He clearly can't handle this alone, so he needs to urgently signal the captain to the surface. Suddenly, a powerful stream of energy burst out from under the water, and it was clearly not an explosion. The Duke noted that it seemed that things had not gone smoothly after all. Most likely Vin had been captured by the sirens, after which, in a commanding tone, he told Adeline to go back to the cabin, but she seemed not to hear him. Our heroine began to panic, wondering what if the butler's fate had become the fate of another person. If the cost of the actions she took to try to save Maven were to be returned to Vacan in full, she would never forgive herself. Horace ordered her to return to the cabin once again. Their friend was captured, so there was no one to protect her. The girl objected that she was not the only one who should receive protection. Adeline also knows how to use magic, so she can protect herself on her own. The young man could not stand it and shouted that her magic would not help her at all. Why does she always try to act so recklessly? Does she really want to go to certain death herself? The young man thought to himself that he himself did not understand why he was so angry, whether this was what he wanted to say. Suddenly, our heroine sternly addressed him as Duke Horace Benzark Ray Derlot, and asked if he remembered the words he had said to her earlier. He said that if she said something, the guy would listen, no matter what happened. He wouldn't get angry. Could it be that all these actions done for her were just a lie? The guy thought to himself that he wasn't angry with her at all. He was just afraid that she might disappear from his life. The thoughts were interrupted by a loud cry from Vulcan, who was lifted into the air by the siren's long tentacles. Adeline immediately told the Duke to quickly go and save Havine. When the guy tried to object, how could he leave her alone? The girl shouted at him to go faster. The Duke immediately began to explain that the siren had woken up earlier than expected. They should be aware that listening to her song was dangerous, so they should quickly put on earplugs made from candles. After this, the young man immediately rushed to attack the huge creature, cutting its tentacles in half. Meanwhile, the girl was thinking that now an opportunity might present itself. The search magic was successful. Then would she be able to cope with the magic stone? The magic stone increases power. You can also write a simple spell on it and use it. The caster renews the used magic, and then there is the option to simply break it. In a past life, a girl asked if she could throw a magic stone, but what if there was no place to throw it? The young man replied that there was no need to worry about this. It would be a problem for ordinary people who did not have magic, but those who have the necessary skills can easily destroy it with just the power of thought. Adeline then thought that the caster only needed to look at the target that he would use and run the magic through his mind. The clearer and more distinctly, the better. Flame is good, if it is so strong. Then you need to create something that will remove everything from its path, very strong and sharp. Meanwhile, the Duke was thinking that he had dealt with this place. Now he needed to help Vakani, but then he noticed a huge fiery arrow that was rushing towards Vin, and the only thought that flashed through his mind was who had created this magic. In this position, his friend was in even greater danger, so he quickly rushed towards him and snatched him from the siren's tentacle. The young man activated the levitation formation so that they could land on some surface. Vakan immediately said thank you, since he remained alive only thanks to him. If not for magic, they would have gotten into trouble. The Duke ignored this and hissed at him to go to Adeline immediately. When the guy found himself on deck, he heard the indignant cries of our heroine, who was asking if they were all asleep or something. When she saw Vakan, she was very glad that he was okay and asked how he was feeling. The boy asked what was going on. Lawton replied that she had simply immobilized them for a while with a stone. She didn't know how to use it, so she was apparently waving her arms wildly, making it seem like she was hitting them. Veen wondered if there was anything that could stop the siren's magic, but the girl stated that he had returned alone. Had Horus sent him or something? Before the young man could answer, there was a powerful explosion, causing everyone to be doused with water. Our heroine went cold. They completely forgot about the bomb, so she activated the defensive formation. Therefore, all the stones that flew in different directions collided with the protection and could not harm the ship. The young man was taken aback. Who created the protective barrier in the sky? Where did it come from? The girl called out to him and said that everything was in perfect order here, so he should return to the captain as soon as possible. No need to worry, Adeline is not weak. Let him just believe in her usefulness, which she has shown them so far. The young man objected that they valued not only her usefulness, but the girl was like family to them. The guy believes in her, so he will go to the commander, and she should be careful. Lawton wondered how pleased she would be if she heard these words from Horus. Meanwhile, Vacan returned to the commander and reported that he had returned to help. The Duke asked, "What about Adeline?" The guy replied that there was no need to worry about her. Benzark immediately started talking. How could he say something like that? Vacan could not stand it and shouted that he said that he was not going to interfere in the captain's affairs, but let him at least try to trust his wife a little. Plus, he doesn't know anything about the escape either. The Duke didn't understand what he was talking about. Finn exclaimed that it didn't matter at the moment, he would tell me later, but first he needed to deal with this monster, after which he shouted, "If she was hit with a sacred sword, now it will hurt her a lot." With the otherworldly being distracted, the young man shouted that it was the commander's time. The Duke first replied that he knew without him, but then froze for a second. There was some strange feeling. Adele's presence was felt everywhere. After which the same fiery arrow appeared again, hitting the target exactly and destroying the siren. After that, it immediately became brighter. The sun came out, and our heroine joyfully shouted that everything worked out. They won, but the young man had no joy on his face. He was only thinking about whether Adele had just used it. Vacan noted that it was simply amazing, as if he had returned to the past, to the great war of the heavenly demon. Whoever came up with the idea to create a protective barrier, it was definitely their captain. The Duke didn't have time to answer, because a girl started running towards them, who was absolutely happy and shouting that everyone really tried hard. Fine could take the blood, heart, and flesh of the siren. Let him forgive her for asking for such a thing, although he had just arrived. The young man replied that everything was fine, and he would handle it in a matter of minutes. When he left, our heroine asked Horus if he was hurt, and he replied that he was fine. The guy thought to himself that if what he saw in his dream was true, then perhaps that woman could be a real fortune teller. In that case, why did Adeline appear in his dream? The face she tried to hide leaves him suspicious, but he still can't let her go. After some time, on the island of Mivine, Vacan was indignant that they were only there for one day. Was it really a pity to stay longer? Our heroine replied that they could not stay long because they had a tight schedule. Let her check with the Duke. When asked if this was true, the young man replied that it was. The girl thought to herself that Horus's attitude towards her had changed. Her thoughts that perhaps he liked her were her own delusion. If she doesn't like it, then it's okay. She will live well and be nourished in the land of darkness. After which she said that they had arrived. This was a restaurant where the best chef on the island cooked. Vacan exclaimed that the name of the restaurant is truly intuitive. After some time and a huge amount of food eaten, the guy said that he could not fit in anymore. It was the first time he had eaten such delicious food since the days of the Great War. Adeline offered to take the cook to the duchy. The young man exclaimed, "Is this really possible?" The girl asked the waiter if she could meet the chef, and the guy said he would take her there. When she left, Vacan exclaimed that the food tasted nostalgic, didn't it? The young man thought for a moment and replied that, yes, it reminded him very much of him. Vin agreed that he had an unusual character and good culinary skills. Suddenly, a voice came out, saying something that didn't sound like something you'd hear from a muscular fool. Everyone knew that his cooking was the best, but in what way was he unusual? Vacan couldn't believe his eyes that Bruno had survived, so he immediately rushed to hug him. What happened to his appearance anyway, and why does he call himself Aster? The guy answered that he didn't want to write the real one, so he just took some dude's name. The young man asked if he had called the restaurant a village restaurant on purpose. 12:43. The young man replied that, yes, it made it easier for him to find his best cook. This little girl, in exchange for his delicious cooking, said that she wanted to ask his consent to meet with someone. Now it is clear who she meant. But who is this? Is it really his woman? Vaken laughed and replied that no. When Havin added that this man was the captain, Bruno was surprised that he had not been told that Fabian had come here. But then he turned around and saw a young man watching all this from the side. He immediately remembered telling little Horace that if he became Derlot, he would receive delicious food prepared by him every day. After which he bowed and said that it was a great honor for him to follow him, and that from now on he would dedicate this body to the fight for Derlot. The Duke replied that he was happy that they met the man again. 12:51. Then he looked at our heroine and thought that whether she was a prophet or not, it didn't matter now. It was enough that she was Adeline Latin. As the young man headed towards her, the girl noted to herself that he was smiling and looking at her. The young man thanked her from the bottom of his heart, but then fell silent as he was surprised by her reaction. Tears were streaming down her cheeks, and she thought to herself that this is what his face looks like when he smiles. Adeline was only just now learning about this side of him. When asked why the girl was crying, she muttered that it was just beautiful and put her hand on his face. The young man thanked her again for the fact that, thanks to her, he met Bruno again. Lawton said that there was no need for such thanks, but the Duke put her hand on his face again and said that he was very glad that he had it. When they all returned home, Astor happily ran towards the man and exclaimed that he had survived. The butler muttered that even if he wanted to greet him, he still needed to help them. After some time, Bruno said that it was the first day, so he prepared light dishes. The previous chef bowed his head to him and said that he was simply amazing. There was no comparison to him. It seemed like he would be fired now. The man gave him an encouraging slap on the back and exclaimed, "What is he even talking about? He will now be his assistant." Our heroine noted that everything really looks simply majestic. They went into the dark forest and brought the best chef with them. Maybe they should throw a party to celebrate. Leff objected that they had just returned and there was already a party. Is that normal? Adeline explained that it would be a gala party. Pleasant music would fill the house, and beautifully dressed guests would enter. When everyone is drunk with the atmosphere, she will look for a cure, one by one, and catch each one. The guy noted that after the trip, our heroine became bolder. But Adeline is really a valuable person to them, so she really needs to be careful. When the girl replied that she would try, Astor was indignant that he wouldn't get off with just trying. He should make a promise. Our heroine laughed at this, but the guy didn't calm down and said that there was no need to laugh. Let him answer. But she was wondering to herself whether this was that very family atmosphere. Suddenly, a picture appeared in her mind of Astor being killed by a huge tree vine. Then the events in her head seemed to roll back some time. The guy shouted that the Duchess needed to quickly move to a safe place. She should not leave there under any circumstances. To himself, he thought that the captain was not here now, and he could not afford to protect her. Adeline was a valuable person to them, so she should be safe. After which he added that she should under no circumstances go out, no matter what happened, and left. Our heroine did not understand what it was just now. Forgotten memories, an illusion, or what. That's why she said that she was probably too tired, so it would be better to go and rest. She kept thinking to herself that this was different from the death she saw in Maven. Although belatedly, she realized that this was a lost memory, but she had no memories of Astor's death. If this continues, she won't be able to protect everyone. But at least this time, she won't leave Horace alone. Benzark first and foremost. The Duke heard this and thought that it was so pleasant for him to hear a girl much less than him say that she would protect the young man. Meanwhile, Marquis Filbert Verdun reported that there were no major movements. But what was strange was that they took a famous chef with them. The butler was also recently planning to come to the neighboring town. They are probably planning to throw a party. The guy noted that if he were a party animal who enjoyed having personal relationships, such news would make him happy. Then he turned to Hella and asked if the same would happen in the future she saw. A few months later, the boy reported to the Duke that they were finished with the garden, after which he asked how much longer they would have to continue training the Eagle's mercenaries in fencing. If you look at it this way, Adeline doesn't leave the underground lab for months, except when she's training in fencing with the captain. Vacant noted that our heroine looked like she was having fun, didn't she? The butler said he didn't think it was normal, so he was a little worried. So Horace decided to go to her, and on the way he thought that the human mind has limits. If you start to explore what goes beyond these limits, then eventually you can go crazy. Right in front of the entrance to the laboratory, there was a strange smell and black smoke in the air. Hearing someone's footsteps, the girl ran out to meet him, and seeing that it was him, she immediately threw herself into his arms and exclaimed that she had succeeded. The young man looked into her eyes and said that she was a great girl, because she tried so hard. The girl seemed to come to her senses and thought that she had apparently gone crazy, and with joy, she threw herself on his neck. But for some reason, she didn't want to tear herself away from him. Suddenly, a muffled cough was heard from behind. It turned out that the guys had also come to check on her and had found this strange picture. Our heroine immediately pushed him aside and said that it was not what they thought. After which she said that she can now open the Forest of Darkness whenever she wants. She wants them all to look at it together. Aster asked what it was. A powder made from the blood of a siren or something. Adeline replied that it was true. Let Horace spread it wide enough for a very large carriage to pass through. She wants to create a luxurious road, the kind that would make you want to walk along it at least once, despite your fear of the dark forest, of such a kind that a person who has stepped there once will have a desire to walk there again. The blood of the holy unicorn affects the plants, and its horn makes them, having taken possession, fall to their knees. Originally, she needed a unicorn's horn and blood, but wouldn't that be possible with a siren who uses mental magic through sound? When the transformation process was nearing completion, the girl asked how they felt, whether it was really beautiful. After some time, Adeline thought that this was the first party opened by the name of Duke Benzark. Then she began to read the text, where it was written that the aristocrats of each kingdom and empire would be invited. But suddenly she stopped, because she saw one family name, Baron Gessen and Baroness Lillian Gessen. The woman said that her husband was the incarnation of Akor, not just the incarnation, but also the dignitaries, whether they knew about it. After which, she told the butler to forward the list of invitations to Horace instead of her, and in the meantime, she would go sit in the greenhouse. Sitting in the beautiful garden, our heroine noted that it was simply lovely here. The maid replied that, yes, it had been 5 years since she had visited the Duke's palace, and she could not even imagine that it would change in such a way. Suddenly, Adeline had an image of herself from a past life, when the maid was indignant that climbing the stairs was really hard. Did the Duchess have to eat 3 times a day? However, the girl was not going to think about hostility now, so she told Catherine that she could sit down too. The maid exclaimed that no, how could she dare sit next to Her Highness? But our heroine replied that she should sit down and raise her head, because it was hard to look from below. Suddenly, the Duke appeared, and Lawton asked why he had come here. The boy objected that he wanted to ask what she was doing in the greenhouse, where there was no one. Our heroine objected, meaning there is no one. Actually, there is a maid here. Adeline asked if he was worried about her being kidnapped. Horace replied that the person involved in her theft was here. The girl replied that he was right about that, but she was not hurt, and Abide Sandyi, surprisingly, treated her politely. Noticing that this picture was a little embarrassing for Catherine, our heroine suggested that they go for a little walk. On the way, the girl asked why he was looking at her like that. Did she look strange or something? The young man replied that this was not so. Our heroine said that, and she thought that he was somehow strange. Horace said that he had always been like that. When the girl laughed loudly, the guy muttered that sometimes he doesn't understand why she laughs. Adeline apologized if she ruined his mood. The young man replied that nothing of the sort. He just wanted to know what made her laugh. Lawton replied that she doesn't even know. She only smiles when he does or says something that is not typical for him. For example, the way he asked why she was laughing. The guy asked the question about her first that interested him, and that doesn't sound like Benzark. The young man noted that his questions made her smile. What else could make her laugh? Adeline thought to herself that she was now smiling for a moment, just walking with him through the greenhouse. But he didn't even know it. Our heroine hopes that someday he will experience this, the feeling of being inspired simply by being near someone. The young man saw how in a dream, Adeline was being insulted by Baroness Lillian Gessi. The woman said that she did not understand why the Duke accepted her as his wife. She could not even do such a thing properly. Therefore, she was too useless. Lawton servilely served the object that, on the contrary, should have served her, and quietly accepted the slander that poured out. The young man constantly sees this dream when he sleeps in the same room with a girl. There is no smiling, half-moon-eyed Adele in this place. In his dreams, she is the person who is being ignored by everyone in the ducal palace, and in his dreams, he just watches it quietly. His thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Abed, who exclaimed that he had succeeded. The captain replied that it was temporary, and that in order to handle a sword or magic, one needed to stock up on strength, and for this the core must be strong. The guy thanked him and said that now he can at least imagine what a core is. In fact, he didn't think Horace would help him, as he believed that he hated him for kidnapping Adeline. The Duke replied that he still couldn't be forgiven for that, after which he added that if the mercenary becomes stronger, his wife will only be happy, so he works with him because of this. The young man noted that he really loved Lawton. He noticed this back when he saw them together for the first time. The Duke tried to object that this could not be. Abed replied that he should think about it himself, only for the sake of making Adeline happy. He decided to help him, who does not even deserve death. Benzark responded that he could not afford to waste time on such unnecessary feelings. The young man thought that most likely he just hadn't realized anything yet. Could this really be his first love? Then revealed to have originally been a knight of the Marquis of Koval, he gained recognition for his skills and became a knight attendant to his young mistress, Lady Alice. The guys fell in love with each other at first sight, but the girls' marriage relationship had already been confirmed. So they decided to escape together, but they were captured almost immediately. However, when he was caught and tortured, Alice, who had gone to the planned wedding, disappeared on the way. This case is about 10 years old, but he still doesn't know if she disappeared or died. Abed couldn't forget her and tried to erase these memories from his memory, but love didn't allow him to let them go. And yet, to the young man, the time he loved did not seem like a waste of time. Even now, at this moment, the Duke certainly misses Adeline, doesn't he? When Horace sees her smiling, his soul becomes light. He is ready to do anything to see her like this. The Duke turned red and shouted at him to stop immediately. The young man stated that this was clearly his first time, so he didn't know anything. But people talk about it that way. Benzark fell in love, and very much so. After some time, the young man wondered if what the mercenary said was really true. In the situation where the heavens were collapsing, Derlot had to take responsibility and care for the safety of the heavens, and he could not waste time on his own feelings such as love. The Duke, of course, thought that these were some strange sensations, but that they would turn out to be so. No. Suddenly, our heroine appeared in his bedroom and called him by name. The guy jumped up in surprise and exclaimed what she was doing here. The girl replied that Horace had not come down to eat, so everyone thought he was sick. But in fact, she even knocked. The young man thought to himself that if he loves and is loved, the current Adeline will become a weak spot for him. Akur, instead of attacking him, will attack her, because that way they can defeat Derlot. Horace understood why he looked at her with such an impassive face in his dream simply because he wanted to protect her, and therefore he came at least just to watch her. After which, he dodged her touch and told her to leave immediately. Adele asked if she had done something to anger him, but the young man replied that nothing of the sort had happened. He simply wanted her to leave right now. Our heroine noted to herself that if this were her past life, she would have left without even asking anything. But now she asked what was the matter. Maybe he heard something bad about her, or maybe she made some mistake. But the Duke kept insisting that she leave. Lawton put her hand on his and said that she didn't want to. She thought he was sick, so she came here only to take care of the sick man. The young man abruptly pushed her onto the bed and said that he had clearly asked her to leave, and that it was all because she was not listening to him, after which she kissed her hard, thinking that she was a person he couldn't love because he didn't want to hurt her. Our heroine was already thinking that this was the first kiss in her entire life. But suddenly, the guy jerked back and grabbed his head, because this could not be allowed. The girl exclaimed that it was he who started kissing her first, and she didn't force him. If someone else had looked from the outside, they would have thought that she had attacked him. Our heroine was completely furious about this, so she headed straight to the office to the rest of the residents of the mansion. She flew into them and said that now she only asks one thing: whether Dev periodically goes through some kind of rutting period. Aster asked her to calm down first and sit down at the table so that they could talk. Adele immediately realized that she had blurted out something completely wrong in the heat of the moment, so she immediately said that she was tired and needed to go to bed. When she left, Lef wondered why she was so angry. Perhaps the captain, without having found the ground, suddenly tried to do something. That's why she got so angry. Vaken replied that nothing could be done about it, since the captain had no experience in romantic relationships. The guy objected that no matter how much he was in a hurry, he shouldn't forget about showing courtesy to a woman. The guys asked him if he wanted them to apologize instead of the Duke, but that would offend her even more. Before going to bed, the girl thought about what she should do now, how she should look him in the eyes now, perhaps even leave the land of darkness. After some time, the Duke knocked on her door and asked her to open it. "Please, Eo?" The young man immediately asked her if she was angry with him, but she replied that no. On the contrary, it seemed that he was angry. When the guy replied that he wasn't angry, Adeline flared up and said that he did it himself, and then behaved very strangely. Horace replied that he didn't intend to be rude to her, and that he should forgive her for kissing her only because of her own desire. And this behavior was only because he was not yet able to understand human feelings well, so he did not think that he would hurt her. He always wants to see her smile, but he doesn't know how to achieve this. He doesn't even know how to apologize in such cases. After which, he handed her a box with a ring and said that he hoped she would like it. About 100 years ago, it was popular to give rings to your lover, which meant the desire to spend the rest of your life with him. She had the same dreams. The young man explained that those brats suddenly visited him and talked to him. The guys explained to him that he had hurt the girl's feelings. The captain was still young and naive, and therefore did not know that it was very important to test the atmosphere. So Aster said that he needed to apologize to her. He should ask for forgiveness very seriously and sincerely by buying some gift and visiting her. So the Duke immediately ran to the jewelry store and bought the most beautiful ring that was there. Our heroine asked if he even knew what this gift meant. Benzark immediately said that if she didn't like it, he could buy something else. Adeline replied that she just wanted to know why he bought the ring. The guy replied that he thought it would be good if she wore it all the time. And besides, it doesn't get damaged as easily as a bracelet or necklace. Our heroine noted to herself that the ring, which does not fit the ring finger, has a feeling that they are not yet in a relationship in which they can become spouses. After which she thanked him and said that the decoration was really beautiful. She really liked it. When the young man replied that he was glad about it, the girl saw that something was wrong with his pupils. She began to feel as if something like this had clearly happened before, but she couldn't remember exactly when. When asked if she was okay, the girl replied that she was just a little tired, so it was time to sleep. Horace agreed that he had visited her too late, so he wished her good night. After some time, Adeline thought about why she couldn't see it, as if she didn't want to, so she couldn't remember where she had seen this sky blue color before. After some time, the 1st of March arrived, the appointed day of the gala party. Count Royal Korha exclaimed, "How many years? How many winters? How did he live? He sees that except for the Baron, the man cannot become anyone. It seems his skills are slightly better than usual." Baron Simon Gessa told him to shut his mouth, because he, unlike him, is not so power-hungry. He is quite happy being a baron. The interlocutor asked whether he had contacted Filbert. Gessi replied that he had intended to, but he was tired of him, so he thought that this brat would not come. The guy thoughtfully said that the land of darkness was not at all attracted to this puppy. He heard that invitations were sent only to aristocrats under the count. I wonder why Filbert is attracted to this place. If you are a human, you don't have to worry about it, even if you are a dev. They don't have a tree of life yet. Suddenly, right in front of the guests, a magical glow appeared, and a road began to appear. Simon noted that even Dev is not capable of this. They do not have enough strength to use such strong magic. After which he turned to Lillian and said that only this time he would forgive her, so let her seduce Duke Benzark. If the girl finds out his secret, he will make her free for a while. Meanwhile, our heroine couldn't stop thinking about what that blue color was. If you think about it, it looks like the light from the holy sword Nickagrace. Is this the sign by which Dev is recognized? If she notices the red light in the eyes of the invited aristocrats, then this is the power that really differentiates Dev and Akur. After some time, the maid exclaimed that upon seeing her, she was truly struck by the beauty of her mistress. The dress that Her Highness wore today is sure to become popular on the continent. The girl approached the Duke and said that when the song began, he had to do something, and she noted to herself that she knew it would happen. She had taught him so many times that it was necessary to invite her to dance. They had to start so that the other guests could dance too. Astor approached them and asked if she would allow him to give the first dance instead of the Lord. But the young man suddenly pulled her towards him and did not let go. Our heroine stated that if Lef had not intervened, he would have been going to pretend until the very end that he did not understand anything, right? The guy replied that it was not suitable for him to dance. The girl said that they must make this party a success. For this, the very important moment with the disclosure of rumors from the people who came. Less than 20% of the invitees showed up, so they should try harder. If everyone finds out that the owner of the mansion, Duke Benzark, is a boring, ill-mannered, insensitive man, everyone will be disappointed and go back home. The young man noted that it sounded as if she was thinking about him in exactly the same way now. Adeline exclaimed sarcastically that then, it turns out, she had hurt him. When the dance was over, our heroine announced that she would go to greet the guests. Therefore, he warns that he might dance with someone else. Horace asked again if she was really going to dance with someone else instead of him. Adeline replied that even the emperor tolerates the empress's hand being given to another man at a party. She's not just having fun. She told me Lawton would be finding a cour at this party. The Duke replied that she didn't have to do that. He saw how much fun she had while preparing for the party, so he wanted her to just enjoy the moment. The girl replied that he was right. She really liked all of this. But did he know that what would amuse her the most right now was precisely what could find his enemies and allow them to breathe their last breath? And for this, she needs to come closer to them and make sure. So could he let go of her hand for a while? Benzark didn't like the idea of her dancing with other men, but he had no choice but to let go of her hand. Perhaps because if you love, you are not able to win. Meanwhile, the guests enjoyed the prepared food. They did not understand how such a divine taste was achieved, who their cook was. Our heroine noted to herself that they did the right thing by preparing an official dinner without appetizers. When she tasted the food that would be at the celebration, she wondered if it was meat. Bruno said that he had treated it a little with magic. Adeline asked if this was possible, and the man replied that the person who uses it can use magic for various purposes. The girls said that they didn't even know that the Land of Darkness was such a place. This dress suits the Duchess very well. Where did she order it from? Since the Duke was described as dark, they thought he would be scary. So how did she manage to achieve marital relations with him? Amidst this chatter that didn't particularly interest her, our heroine saw Simon dragging Lillian somewhere by the hand, after which our heroine immediately smiled sweetly and said that she would step away for a minute. With the help of a magical formation, she decided to spy and eavesdrop on what was going on there. The man shouted that she was a helpless parasite. He brought her in without a penny, fed her, gave her a roof over her head, and she couldn't fulfill his requests normally. The girl noted to herself that these were the words that were spoken to her, and now she was hearing them from her own husband. The Baron kicked her and said that this Duchess was so beautiful, so an ordinary woman like her would never attract the Duke's attention. But she has a good body, so let her use her feminine energy and seduce this brat, lure him, find out and tell him what he is hiding. If she succeeds, then she may not go home with him today, because, no matter how you look at it, the man is a rather magnanimous husband. Adeline's voice was heard calling out to the Baroness, who immediately asked how long the Duchess had been there. Our heroine told her to call her by her first name, because they were both wives of aristocrats, so they could address each other that way. During the party, she felt like her makeup had come off, so she decided to touch it up. After which she suggested going together. The girl stated that she noticed that she was crying. Lawton added that she had recently received some good cosmetics from a knight, so she brought it with her. She hadn't used it yet, so she wanted to find out with her how good it was. Lillian thought to herself that she thought that all the upper-class aristocrats were arrogant and rude, but she was so considerate towards her, and the girl didn't even attract anyone's attention. So she replied that, okay. Adeline thought to herself that in her past life, she didn't know that Lillian perceived her like that. Maybe it was because she ignored her without realizing it. Or maybe it was because she felt that the girl who had suddenly returned to the Land of Darkness had different feelings for Horace. What if she was also subjected to such treatment at home by her husband? so the Duke killed him and brought her to them. She probably wanted to find a place for herself where she could live with new feelings, like Lawton, who wants to experience this life differently. If they had had a normal conversation then, there would have been no misunderstandings. Although torturing her is also not the right thing to do, Simon's voice, which addressed her, the man said he wanted to thank her for inviting them, not forgetting the kingdom of Mafar, with its unenviable position. The girl replied that if she wanted to thank someone, she should convey it to Duke Benzark. But the Baron objected that he wanted to invite the charming lady to dance along the way. Our heroine decided to call it reconnaissance, so she agreed to one dance. Suddenly, the man said that he had indeed heard many rumors about the Duke, but he was not aware that he had married, so he was very surprised to see Adeline. When the man added that she was simply incredibly beautiful, Lawton saw his eyes glow red, yet Dev and Akur could be distinguished. Seeing her confusion, the man stated that the Duchess was uncomfortable dancing with him. The girl replied that nothing of the sort. The Lord dances beautifully. When the Baron added that the way they created the road with magic was simply amazing, Adeline said that a large part was alchemy. Simon was surprised that they had such an excellent alchemist. The girl replied that lately, people with such abilities can be counted on the fingers of one hand, but it seems to her that he thinks that she is lying. Simon replied that no, it would just be interesting to meet him once. Our heroine whispered in his ear that if she had the chance, she would definitely introduce them. She was looking forward to sharing a dialogue about alchemy later, alone with the Lord. The man replied that he would definitely invite her for a close joint conversation a little later. After a while, Adeline exhaled and thought that now she could take a little rest. There were two Akers at this party, Baron Gessa and Count Royal Korha. Both have red eyes, and both look like the generation of the 20s. She didn't see any other light from her eyes. But the fact that Dev and Aker can be distinguished is still surprising. In her past life, the Duke told her that she was a person who saw the truth. Bruno also said that people consider them gods, but in reality, they are also only what they created. To distinguish enemy families is the ability of a leader who has received the blessing of God. In the underworld, the devil; in heaven, Durlat; and on earth, the seer. These are the leaders of Middle Earth. But the seer of the human world is Hela Alton, already born. Does this mean that Adeline is the devil? Then she realized that no, she was born from her mother's womb as she should have been. Devs don't age, but Lawton isn't like that. The Tree of Life burned to ashes during the heavenly war against the demons, and the underworld effectively came to rule Middle Earth. The state religion began to serve Akur, and the temple that served Dev remained only a kind of legend. Perhaps, in order to correct the disturbed balance, God sent down some power. The girl must maintain the existing balance by providing help to Dev and reviving the heavenly world. Neither Durlo nor the devil can turn back time. God clearly brought her back to life so that she could help Devi. The next day, our heroine told us that at least among the people who came to the party were Simon and Royal. These two are Akari. Then she asked why he was looking at her so strangely. Did he really think that she was calling demons those who were not such? The young man asked how she knew that it was them, whether the seer had predicted them to her or what. The girl thought that if she were to talk about the power of God, she would have to talk about her past life, and she didn't want Horace to know about that terrible and wretched one, after which she said that now the aristocrats will spread rumors. If there are more people who receive an invitation and often visit this mansion, then the Duke and she will not have anything to do with their deaths. Adeline is thinking about throwing another party next month, the guy replied. Okay. Then our heroine was informed that she would not be able to attend fencing training today. She was too tired, so she wanted to rest. On the way, she thought that even though she said that she would just observe for now, she would still have to deal with one person. After some time, Lillian, who was covered in bruises, entered her room and saw someone's silhouette on the balcony. When the girl wanted to scream in fear, Adeline immediately covered her mouth with her hand and told her to be quiet. She needs to talk to her about something. That's why she came. Could she please be calmer? Let him forgive her for such an unexpected visit. She has a very important conversation planned. Let him understand correctly. When Lillian offered her some tea, our heroine said that there was no need to fuss because she had not come for tea, after which she reported that she had thought of beating Baron Simon Gessi. She wonders how a girl can come up with such an idea. She needs to know if she can run the barony without her husband. Gisa asked why she suddenly decided to kill her husband. Lawton answered, because she doesn't like him. She doesn't like people who are careless with women. After which she added that there was another reason, but for some reason she could not disclose it, so she would ask again if she could eat. Lillian thought that from the moment of their marriage until now, every day, without ceasing, she wanted to kill him. Finally, the answer to her prayers that she said every night came. So she replied that she could. They would cope no matter what. Our heroine replied that it was true. When the moon rose tomorrow night, she should tell her husband that she seemed to have seen the Duchess of Benzark. After that, he would not return, and if he did return, most likely he would have a different face from the one he had now. Lillian would be of great help to Horace if she sided with him by inheriting the barony of Gessé. If gradually people outside the land of darkness come to his side, things will go much better. Suddenly, our heroine saw that the young man was standing in her room. What was he doing here at such a time? He should be sleeping now. The Duke stated that she clearly knew how to use the teleporter. When Adeline replied that yes, the young man said that it was clear to him and that he should pass on. The girl was surprised that Horace would not ask anything. The guy asked if she wanted him to start asking questions. In fact, the guy is worried that she will be in danger, so he hopes that his wife will notify him when she plans to go somewhere so late at night. Lawton noted to herself that he was pretending that nothing had happened, and yet she was worried and wanted to tell him the whole truth. But what if this power in her disappears when she tells everything? There is one legend that wanders around the continent. One wanderer met a certain man while he was walking his way. He was asked, "What is his main desire?" He replied that he wanted to create and that he didn't need anything else. The stranger replied that, okay, but he had to keep one promise. He couldn't tell anyone what he would be given. So the wanderer's wish came true. But because of his excessive joy, he forgot about the small promise he had made with that man and began to brag to a large number of people. And what he received disappeared, as if it had never happened. But what if our heroine is the wanderer? What if she met God on the eve of her death? The girl has no memory of what happened the day before her death, except that Horace's sword pierced her heart. If this happened among the memories she doesn't remember, all her strength may disappear the moment she tells everything. Our heroine can't do anything about it, even if she seems suspicious. She wants to create what he wants, even if he tore her heart apart, because she loves him, so she replied that she lives for him. Sometime later, the girls discussed that there was a wonderful golden arch and a road strewn with precious stones, and also such a rare dish, which they tried for the first time in their lives. And besides, the spouses of the Duchy of Benzark were so beautiful. The man standing around the corner was thinking how pathetic they were. All they talked about was the party. It's not unusual for a guy who just inherited the title of Duke to want to show off his wealth and power. But what worries him more is something else: the arch and the road. In the land of darkness, the forest of darkness, which even the incarnation of Akur could not do anything about, moved by itself and made a road. Even Akur, who visited him, did not tell about this. Simon only reported that the mission regarding this duchess was completed. It seems that she has an interest in him. He's just a pathetic brat, seeing as how everyone has nothing to say about Duke Benzark. It seems like nothing will happen if they ignore him, but something is bothering him. He needs to find out a way to invite Hela to a party. After some time, our heroine hoped that Horace was already asleep. The moon would rise soon, so there was no time to waste. The young man was not sleeping and saw that she was using teleportation, during which she did not use the starter. Even he, Derlati, had weak strength, so he had to use the activated starter. Siren Search Magic. Ability to distinguish Dev from Akur. The answer to everything is one. Is Lawton really the devil? But if she exists as a devil, Akur's powers should have grown stronger. And with their powers, it won't be difficult to cross the forest of darkness, so there's no reason to wait for a chance. Besides, the young man received a prophecy. If this is not the devil's tricks, then Adele is trying to help him. Why does he always want to think that she is not the devil? We must not forget about our responsibility as Derlot. If Adeline turns out to be the devil, she must be killed immediately. However, he wants to keep her close to him, even if he has to give up everything. While Simon was beating the girl again, she lay and thought about when the moon would set. As soon as the moonlight appeared, Lillian immediately reported that there was someone there. It seemed to be Duchess Benzark. The man immediately looked out the window and saw that there really was someone's silhouette standing below. He was so happy that he decided not to waste a minute, so he immediately rushed to get ready. The girl asked if the maid had seen the Baron go outside. She answered that, yes. Where did he go so urgently? He said that a man in black clothes was walking in the garden. Perhaps she should go and question him. Lillian replied that he should do so, as she was worried that he might have a guest at such a late hour. But she couldn't believe that she would actually be able to get out of this hell. Meanwhile, the Baron had already caught up with our heroine and, trying to catch his breath, asked where else she would wander. At the party, he promised that he would invite her soon, but she decided to visit him first. Was she really that impatient to meet him again? The girl replied that there was such a thing, after which she suggested that they quickly have some fun in this darkness. But suddenly, Adeline grabbed him by the throat and electric discharges appeared around, after which she hissed that it turns out that the incarnation of Akur is weaker than expected. He can't even get out of her hands. The man noted to himself that this was mental magic, but he hadn't heard the starter. When did she manage to start using magic? How did she even know about Akur? Lawton thought to herself that she must not be afraid of her hand being bloody. She must imagine the thorns driven all over his body, so that the pain she imagined in her imagination would not allow his heart to withstand. After which she stated that, unlike him, she did not have sadistic tendencies, so she would quickly finish everything. However, she also cannot imagine how much pain he will feel, but she hopes that the pain will be the same as that of the girls he tortured. After the young man fell to the ground unconscious, our heroine noted to herself that it was easier than expected. When Adeline turned around, she saw Horace, who said that he had asked her to tell him when she was leaving. The girl immediately approached him and asked him to stay with her that night because she had killed Baron Simon Gessi. As he noticed, she knows how to use very strong magic. She destroyed him with mental magic, imagined all the pain that he would receive, and the man, while he was receiving this pain, died of a heart attack. But she will use this power for him. Everything Adeline does may be confusing and seem suspicious, but it's all just for him, so let him believe her. The young man only asked if she had been hurt and added that no matter what she did, he would not suspect her of anything. Even if she pierces his heart with a knife, the guy will think that it was necessary. Our heroine was deeply touched by this, and she realized that he loved her too, after which she kissed him on the forehead. Lawton loves him very much, despite the fact that she died from his sword in her past life. Horace also loves her so much that he justifies, for reasons unknown to himself, all these actions that arouse suspicion. No matter how indifferent he may be, there is no doubt about the love that flows out. The young man said that if things continued like this, some difficulties would arise. When asked what kind, the guy asked her not to force him to say something he shouldn't. Our heroine objected that he had nothing that he shouldn't tell her. After this, the Duke kissed her hard and said that he wanted to sleep next to her that night. After some time, the girl thought that she must have gone crazy, since she provoked him so much that he would kiss her. Suddenly, a young man hugged her and said that her heart was pounding like crazy. Adeline thought to herself that they were really lying in the same bed right now. Apparently, they really were going to sleep together. Benzark added that his heart was also pounding like crazy. Lawton couldn't believe that this wasn't a dream. After waking up, will she again be lying alone in that secluded room from her past life? Suddenly, the Duke announced that it was time for them to sleep, and the girl had no choice but to agree. She thought to herself that this might be for the best, until they got used to sleeping next to each other, until they stopped being nervous about the warmth of their bodies transmitted while being covered by the same blanket. She would like this kind of relationship. It seemed like this was the first time she had cuddled up with someone like this since she was a little girl sleeping with her mother. Meanwhile, the boy thought that it seemed like this dream was the future, a tired and lifeless atmosphere. With the passage of time, Asur would become stronger, and Maku would act more confidently. Abed said that he sincerely asks for forgiveness. He knew Alice's kidnapper, and tried for a long time to find him, but it didn't work. Then he asked her what she called that Masu, that ate people, and they remained imprisoned in his belly. It was the name that she heard for the first time in her life. The girl answered that it was Dubella. Vacan replied that he was a guy with no weak points, his belly still filling with girls. When asked how he knew Alice was there, the guy replied that he had received a prediction. The Duke stated that if the misunderstanding was resolved, then it was time to go. Abid objected that he couldn't leave like that. Couldn't he take the Eagle faction with him? Horace noted to himself that they probably wanted to escape from Marquis Cuval and get to the lands of darkness. The young man added that the Duke was his lifelong benefactor and the strongest man he had ever met, and they wanted to serve him. But Benzark replied that they had no need for the Eagle faction. Alice said that she also begs him very much that if her father or the Marquis finds out that she is well, he will send people to take her away, but she does not want to return to this vile hell. Vaken whispered in her ear that he wouldn't mind taking them along either, so let him think about it. Hela said that if they saved a girl with an appearance like hers, a new meeting would be started that could greatly help them in the future. The young man woke up suddenly and thought that he was encountering this name again. He was convinced that she was now the most powerful seer, in case Adeline was not her. But why doesn't he like the feelings he has for Hela? Should he follow the words said by that girl? Horace noted that in his dream, he did not believe her. There must definitely be a reason for that. He needed to send Abid, whom Hela insisted on meeting. It was Adeline who brought Abid here. There must be a reason why she made him a knight of Horus. The girl can't do him any harm. Right now, he himself is dangerous. His thoughts were interrupted by the girl's voice, who asked if he slept well. The young man replied that, okay. But as for her, he thought to himself that the dream was just a dream. He was too carried away by it, although the dream was so clear that he confused it with reality. From now on, he will have to stop sleeping with Adele. Our heroine replied that she really got enough sleep and did not dream anything. Lately, she has not seen any dreams at all, or rather, since she married him. The guy noted that it was strange. He, Dev, sees dreams, and Lawton doesn't dream about anything after marriage. There must be some connection between this. The girl asked why he had such a serious expression on his face, whether something had happened, but the young man replied that nothing of the sort had happened. Horace thought to himself that what was important was that he would continue to see this unknown dream until he understood its essence, but it would be more difficult to do so only with his desire. After which he told her to refuse his offer to sleep together in the future. He realized that sleeping with her was too pleasant, so let her callously refuse him. In the morning, the guard troops found the Baron, after which they reported his death, which caused the Baroness to lose consciousness. The troops said that this was due to cardiac paralysis. In the gloomy atmosphere of people who lost their master, Lillian came to mind. It was hard for the girl to hide her joy, because she would no longer have to suffer, and she was free. Closer to the end of March, the Baroness inherited everything after the funeral. Her father told Alice to eat in a commanding tone, but she thought to herself that so much time had passed. But the girl was still most afraid of her father. Dishes that were disgusting to even look at, larvae that smelled rotten. Father hissed that even if she didn't like them, she should eat them. There was no harm in them. They only looked like that. But when they got inside, they would become nutrients. The girl noted to herself that she said that one could only stay alive by eating this. Then she started eating this horrible food and wondering if there was any point in her staying alive. The results of her choices in favor of love were cruel. Dad said that if she became a good daughter, he would let her go. As she obediently walked toward the Count, she found herself locked in Dubella's belly. Whether her lover was alive or whether she would go crazy, the girl held on with the faith that he was alive and that she would be able to see them. But it seemed she did not have long left. After some time, spring came. Our heroine said that now it was time for them to open the second party. Maybe it was worth killing another Akur before the party started. It must be Royal Cora, the young man clarified how they would do it this time. Adeline replied that she was not sure. The cause of the Baron's death was officially announced, which said that it was heart failure. If 2 died from this, it would be somehow suspicious. Lillian looked through the documents left by her husband, and there were things that could be useful. As the mistress of the barony, she vows to work for the Duke of Benzark. She will live the new life that was given to her in such a way as not to disappoint the Duchess. Horace asked, what about an accident? A fall from a horse would do. If we follow Vaken's investigation, then he likes to race along steep mountain ridges. Then our heroine was informed that she would not be able to attend fencing training today. She was too tired, so she wanted to rest. On the way, she thought that even though she said that she would just observe for now, she would still have to deal with one person. After some time, Lillian, who was covered in bruises, entered her room and saw someone's silhouette on the balcony. When the girl wanted to scream in fear, Adeline immediately covered her mouth with her hand and told her to be quiet. She needs to talk to her about something. That's why she came. Could she please be calmer? Let him forgive her for such an unexpected visit. She has a very important conversation planned. Let him understand correctly. When Lillian offered her some tea, our heroine said that there was no need to fuss because she had not come for tea, after which she reported that she had thought of beating Baron Simon Gessi. She wonders how a girl can come up with such an idea. She needs to know if she can run the barony without her husband. Gisa asked why she suddenly decided to kill her husband. Lawton answered, because she doesn't like him. She doesn't like people who are careless with women. After which she added that there was another reason, but for some reason she could not disclose it, so she would ask again if she could eat. Lillian thought that from the moment of their marriage until now, every day, without ceasing, she wanted to kill him. Finally, the answer to her prayers that she said every night came, so she replied that she could. They would cope no matter what. Our heroine replied that it was true. When the moon rose tomorrow night, she should tell her husband that she seemed to have seen the Duchess of Benzark. After that, he would not return, and if he did return, most likely he would have a different face from the one he had now. Lillian would be of great help to Horace if she sided with him by inheriting the barony of Gessi. If gradually people outside the land of darkness come to his side, things will go much better. Suddenly, our heroine saw that the young man was standing in her room. What was he doing here at such a time? He should be sleeping now. The Duke stated that she clearly knew how to use the teleporter. When Adeline replied that yes, the young man said that it was clear to him and that he should pass on. The girl was surprised that Horace would not ask anything. The guy asked if she wanted him to start asking questions. In fact, the guy is worried that she will be in danger, so he hopes that his wife will notify him when she plans to go somewhere so late at night. Lawton noted to herself that he was pretending that nothing had happened, and yet she was worried and wanted to tell him the whole truth. But what if this power in her disappears when she tells everything? There is one legend that wanders around the continent. One wanderer met a certain man while he was walking his way. He was asked, "What is his main desire?" He replied that he wanted to create and that he didn't need anything else. The stranger replied that, okay, but he had to keep one promise. He couldn't tell anyone what he would be given. So the wanderer's wish came true. But because of his excessive joy, he forgot about the small promise he had made with that man and began to brag to a large number of people, and what he received disappeared, as if it had never happened. But what if our heroine is the wanderer? What if she met God on the eve of her death? The girl has no memory of what happened the day before her death, except that Horace's sword pierced her heart. If this happened among the memories she doesn't remember, all her strength may disappear the moment she tells everything. Our heroine can't do anything about it, even if she seems suspicious. She wants to create what he wants, even if he tore her heart apart, because she loves him, so she replied that she lives for him. Sometime later, the girls discussed that there was a wonderful golden arch and a road strewn with precious stones, and also such a rare dish, which they tried for the first time in their lives. And besides, the spouses of the Duchy of Benzark were so beautiful. The man standing around the corner was thinking how pathetic they were. All they talked about was the party. It's not unusual for a guy who just inherited the title of Duke to want to show off his wealth and power. But what worries him more is something else: the arch and the road. In the land of darkness, the forest of darkness, which even the incarnation of Akur could not do anything about, moved by itself and made a road. Even Akur, who visited him, did not tell about this. Simon only reported that the mission regarding this duchess was completed. It seems that she has an interest in him. He's just a pathetic brat, seeing as how everyone has nothing to say about Duke Benzark. It seems like nothing will happen if they ignore him, but something is bothering him. He needs to find out a way to invite Hela to a party. After some time, our heroine hoped that Horace was already asleep. The moon would rise soon, so there was no time to waste. The young man was not sleeping, and saw that she was using teleportation, during which she did not use the starter. Even he, Derlati, had weak strength, so he had to use the activated starter. Siren Search Magic, ability to distinguish Dev from Akur. The answer to everything is one. Is Lawton really the devil? But if she exists as a devil, Acker's powers should have grown stronger. And with their powers, it won't be difficult to cross the forest of darkness. So there's no reason to wait for a chance. Besides, the young man received a prophecy. If this is not the devil's tricks, then Adele is trying to help him. Why does he always want to think that she is not the devil? We must not forget about our responsibility as Derlot. If Adeline turns out to be the devil, she must be killed immediately. However, he wants to keep her close to him, even if he has to give up everything. While Simon was beating the girl again, she lay and thought about when the moon would set. As soon as the moonlight appeared, Lillian immediately reported that there was someone there. It seemed to be Duchess Benzark. The man immediately looked out the window and saw that there really was someone's silhouette standing below. He was so happy that he decided not to waste a minute, so he immediately rushed to get ready. The girl asked if the maid had seen the Baron go outside. She answered that, yes. Where did he go so urgently? He said that a man in black clothes was walking in the garden. Perhaps she should go and question him. Lillian replied that he should do so, as she was worried that he might have a guest at such a late hour. But she couldn't believe that she would actually be able to get out of this hell. Meanwhile, the Baron had already caught up with our heroine and, trying to catch his breath, asked where else she would wander. At the party, he promised that he would invite her soon, but she decided to visit him first. Was she really that impatient to meet him again? The girl replied that there was such a thing, after which she suggested that they quickly have some fun in this darkness. But suddenly, Adeline grabbed him by the throat and electric discharges appeared around, after which she hissed that it turns out that the incarnation of Akur is weaker than expected. He can't even get out of her hands. The man noted to himself that this was mental magic, but he hadn't heard the starter. When did she manage to start using magic? How did she even know about Akur? Lawton thought to herself that she must not be afraid of her hand being bloody. She must imagine the thorns driven all over his body, so that the pain she imagined in her imagination would not allow his heart to withstand. After which she stated that, unlike him, she did not have sadistic tendencies, so she would quickly finish everything. However, she also cannot imagine how much pain he will feel, but she hopes that the pain will be the same as that of the girls he tortured. After the young man fell to the ground unconscious, our heroine noted to herself that it was easier than expected. When Adeline turned around, she saw Horace, who said that he had asked her to tell him when she was leaving. The girl immediately approached him and asked him to stay with her that night, because she had killed Baron Simon Gessi. As he noticed, she knows how to use very strong magic. She destroyed him with mental magic, imagined all the pain that he would receive, and the man, while he was receiving this pain, died of a heart attack. But she will use this power for him. Everything Adeline does may be confusing and seem suspicious, but it's all just for him, so let him believe her. The young man only asked if she had been hurt, and added that no matter what she did, he would not suspect her of anything. Even if she pierces his heart with a knife, the guy will think that it was necessary. Our heroine was deeply touched by this, and she realized that he loved her too, after which she kissed him on the forehead. Lawton loves him very much, despite the fact that she died from his sword in her past life. Horace also loves her so much that he justifies, for reasons unknown to himself, all these actions that arouse suspicion. No matter how indifferent he may be, there is no doubt about the love that flows out. The young man said that if things continued like this, some difficulties would arise. When asked what kind, the guy asked her not to force him to say something he shouldn't. Our heroine objected that he had nothing that he shouldn't tell her. After this, the Duke kissed her hard and said that he wanted to sleep next to her that night. After some time, the girl thought that she must have gone crazy, since she provoked him so much that he would kiss her. Suddenly, a young man hugged her and said that her heart was pounding like crazy. Adeline thought to herself that they were really lying in the same bed right now. Apparently, they really were going to sleep together. Benzark added that his heart was also pounding like crazy. Lawton couldn't believe that this wasn't a dream. After waking up, will she again be lying alone in that secluded room from her past life? Suddenly, the Duke announced that it was time for them to sleep, and the girl had no choice but to agree. She thought to herself that this might be for the best, until they got used to sleeping next to each other, until they stopped being nervous about the warmth of their bodies transmitted while being covered by the same blanket. She would like this kind of relationship. It seemed like this was the first time she had cuddled up with someone like this since she was a little girl sleeping with her mother. Meanwhile, the boy thought that it seemed like this dream was the future, a tired and lifeless atmosphere. With the passage of time, Asur would become stronger, and Maku would act more confidently. Abed said that he sincerely asks for forgiveness. He knew Alice's kidnapper, and tried for a long time to find him, but it didn't work. Then he asked her what she called that masu, that ate people, and they remained imprisoned in his belly. It was the name that she heard for the first time in her life. The girl answered that it was Dubella. Vaken replied that he was a guy with no weak points, his belly still filling with girls. When asked how he knew Alice was there, the guy replied that he had received a prediction. The Duke stated that if the misunderstanding was resolved, then it was time to go. Abed objected that he couldn't leave like that. Couldn't he take the Eagle faction with him? Horace noted to himself that they probably wanted to escape from Marquis Cuval and get to the lands of darkness. The young man added that the Duke was his lifelong benefactor and the strongest man he had ever met, and they wanted to serve him. But Benzark replied that they had no need for the Eagle faction. Alice said that she also begs him very much that if her father or the Marquis finds out that she is well, he will send people to take her away. But she does not want to return to this vile hell. Vaken whispered in her ear that he wouldn't mind taking them along either, so let him think about it. Hela said that if they saved a girl with an appearance like hers, a new meeting would be started that could greatly help them in the future. The young man woke up suddenly and thought that he was encountering this name again. He was convinced that she was now the most powerful seer, in case Adeline was not her. But why doesn't he like the feelings he has for Hela? Should he follow the words said by that girl? Horace noted that in his dream, he did not believe her. There must definitely be a reason for that. He needed to send Abed, whom Hela insisted on meeting. It was Adeline who brought Abed here. There must be a reason why she made him a knight of Horus. The girl can't do him any harm. Right now, he himself is dangerous. His thoughts were interrupted by the girl's voice, who asked if he slept well. The young man replied that, okay. But as for her, he thought to himself that the dream was just a dream. He was too carried away by it, although the dream was so clear that he confused it with reality. From now on, he will have to stop sleeping with Adele. Our heroine replied that she really got enough sleep and did not dream anything. Lately, she has not seen any dreams at all. Or rather, since she married him. The guy noted that it was strange. He, Dev, sees dreams. And Lawton doesn't dream about anything after marriage. There must be some connection between this. The girl asked why he had such a serious expression on his face, whether something had happened, but the young man replied that nothing of the sort had happened. Horace thought to himself that what was important was that he would continue to see this unknown dream until he understood its essence. But it would be more difficult to do so only with his desire, after which he told her to refuse his offer to sleep together in the future. He realized that sleeping with her was too pleasant, so let her callously refuse him. In the morning, the guard troops found the Baron, after which they reported his death, which caused the Baroness to lose consciousness. The troops said that this was due to cardiac paralysis. In the gloomy atmosphere of people who lost their master, Lillian came to mind. It was hard for the girl to hide her joy, because she would no longer have to suffer, and she was free. Closer to the end of March, the Baroness inherited everything after the funeral. Her father told Alice to eat in a commanding tone, but she thought to herself that so much time had passed. But the girl was still most afraid of her father. Dishes that were disgusting to even look at. Larvae that smelled rotten. Father hissed that even if she didn't like them, she should eat them. There was no harm in them. They only looked like that. But when they got inside, they would become nutrients. The girl noted to herself that she said that one could only stay alive by eating this. Then she started eating this horrible food and wondering if there was any point in her staying alive. The results of her choices in favor of love were cruel. Dad said that if she became a good daughter, he would let her go. As she obediently walked toward the Count, she found herself locked in Dubella's belly. Whether her lover was alive or whether she would go crazy, the girl held on with the faith that he was alive and that she would be able to see them. But it seemed she did not have long left. After some time, spring came. Our heroine said that now it was time for them to open the second party. Maybe it was worth killing another Akur before the party started. It must be Royal Korra. The young man clarified how they would do it this time. Adeline replied that she was not sure. The cause of the Baron's death was officially announced, which said that it was heart failure. If two died from this, it would be somehow suspicious. Lillian looked through the documents left by her husband, and there were things that could be useful. As the mistress of the barony, she vows to work for the Duke of Benzark. She will live the new life that was given to her in such a way as not to disappoint the Duchess. Horace asked, "What about an accident? A fall from a horse would do. If we follow Vacan's investigation, then he likes to race along